this long. It's horrible. We still have it's ridiculous.
The little tables, they're gone.
I think they're all gone at this point. Yeah, yeah. Everybody wants to put them in stockings.
Kyle doesn't know what's coming.
No.
I am going to give you a neat one. Well, you know, I think
All right, folks, apologies for the delay. We're doing 3 meetings back to back to back, and yeah, it's doing a little transition. So it is 7:07. I'll call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order for December 19th, 2019. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is approval of the agenda, and I actually do have something I'd like to add to it. 10G under new business. I'd like to reschedule our next 2 regular meeting dates. They would then become special meetings. The reason being, the next regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen is January 2nd. It's the day after New Year's, and there's 2 holidays between now and then, which are really right in the middle of the week and going to kill a fair amount of productivity. And Selectman Baker is not going to be able to make it on the 2nd. There are also 3 Thursdays in the month of January, so by shifting the 2nd to the 9th and the 16th to the 23rd, we maintain an every other week schedule except for the New Year's holiday. I'd like to add that as agenda item 10G if we could.
Make a motion to add 10G new business meeting dates modified to January 9th and January 23rd.
Is there a second to the amendment to the agenda? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. A motion would be in order to accept the agenda as amended.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Second.
Moved by Mr. Nordell, seconded by Mr. Baker. Any discussion on amending the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All in favor. All selectmen are here and present. Approval of the the meeting minutes from December 5th, 2019. They are in your packet.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the Thursday, December 5th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Mrs. DeSouza, seconded by Ms. Muska. You had some corrections.
Yep, I had some corrections that I addressed with Peg, and she has gotten them, and we made changes. One is this on page 12, the spelling of Mike Moriarty has an extra I in it. It just needs to be changed. And then it was referenced that Warehouse Point Fire District didn't meet last month, but that is not true. The Warehouse Point Fire District meeting was just postponed by a week due to weather. They did actually meet. And the last is Tom Lansford is mentioned as Tom Langsford, which is an incorrect spelling as well. It should be Tom Lansner.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And that's all I have.
Great.
Yeah, on the first page, Also, under public, you have Tom Langsford also.
Yeah.
It should be Lasner. On page 5, it indicates second paragraph that Deputy First Selectman felt that the proposal should be cut back to 8 questions. I said it should be cut back by 8 questions, not 2, but 5, because there was far too many. And then moving on to page 9, last paragraph. I said Deputy First Selectman D'Souza suggested $29 laptops in Walmart and downloads for various programs. I didn't recommend the $29 computers. What I recommended was the fact that on a $29 computer, there's a lot of software for educational purpose that you can download free, and that was the point I was trying to drive to them rather than spend $11.95 for software.
Okay.
All right, so if you could just clean that up. And then, you got page 12, and Tom Lansford, that's been corrected. I believe that's all I have. Yep.
Are there any other, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Sarah, did you have anything? Did you find anything?
No, I basically found the same things that were already discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other amendments to the minutes as presented? So I'd ask that the motion to accept be be amended to say a motion to accept the amended minutes.
Motion to accept the amended meeting minutes of December 5, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Seeing no further corrections, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Those are adopted. I keep glancing at the clock just to make sure we're on time for the town meeting, so excuse my wandering eye. Public participation. This is the one of the public's 2 opportunities to participate in our agenda this evening. The floor is yours. Please raise your hand, state your name and address, and we'll call on you in order. Yes, sir.
Jim Barton, 158 South Water Street. Just like to point out that the regularly scheduled Veterans Commission meeting is the second Thursday of every month.
If we need to find another place, we'll find another place. Yes, sir.
Tom Meeting, 23 Rice Road. Just a reminder to everybody, our New Year's Day annual hike is coming up on New Year's Day at 1 o'clock at Melrose Park by the old Melrose Bridge. It's our 10th annual in that location.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Snars Road. Emergency exit over here, but the thing is never shoveled out or anything else there. I'd like to make sure the town cleans off that. Last time it was snow right up the doors there.
Other public comments? Okay, then we will move on. We have a number of communications this week. Some of them are FYI, some of them are kind of fun. The first one is from the Scout Hall Youth Center Committee, and they did a creative play on the 12 Days of Christmas, outlining the things that they have accomplished in their time. They have 1 beautiful pond, 2 tobacco sheds, 3 small conference rooms, 4 outdoor pavilions, 5 golden rings, not really, but they have 5 bathroom stalls, 8 burners on the stove, 11 dedicated committee members, 19 years open and still going strong, 20 East Windsor youth groups meeting there, 45 homeschool children meeting once a week, 60 children attending the FRC summer camp, 80 years on our 99-year lease remaining, 90 acres of open space ending at the Scantic River, 372 youths attending meetings each month, 375 meetings or events in calendar year 2019, 1,350 meetings at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings for 26 years with not one canceled. So this is just a holiday message from the Youth Center that I thought was creative and worth including. We also had a wreath donated to Town Hall from the Broadbrook Library Association, and I wanted to include a photo of that. It's hanging on the door to the Selectman's office. That was a very nice donation. We have the food share distribution dates for calendar 2020. Those more or less take place every other Friday from 1 to 1:30 in the parking lot at St. Catherine's Church. These next two were letters that I got from students in the middle school, and I included these for two reasons. One, I think it's awesome anytime there's a student that participates in the democratic process, and that they took time to write an elected official, I think is a very good thing to encourage, and I was excited to see that as a continuing project that the school district does. The superintendent has gotten some of these as well. But the other reason that I included them is because of the subject matter that they talked about. The first young lady, Sarah Posniak, wrote us, and it's a budgetary request, probably more appropriate for the Board of Ed, but just to share with the group what that was. She made an argument for all the benefits of providing foreign language education in schools. And she took the time to write about the different things that she got from that and would like to get from that. And I thought that was worth noting. And the other one was a young lady who's in 8th grade who will be a freshman next year and would like to see funding restored for JV sports. And for two 8th grade students to take the time to write about issues that directly affect them, that their government has a role in, certainly shouldn't go without being recognized. So that's why those are included. They will be forwarded to the board and they'll get a personal response from me. And then just FYI, 17 is the budget guidelines letter that went out asking for budget submissions to be turned back by tomorrow, COB tomorrow. And I wanted you guys to see the comments that we had made at the last meeting incorporated into the communication. And we're still doing okay on time. So we should move on to, unless anybody has any questions on any of those. No? Okay. So we're going to move on then to resignations. And there is a letter here. In your packet, there is a letter, rather, from James Baddikian, who is resigning from the Historic Preservation Commission as an alternate member in hopes of being appointed as a full member. Yeah.
I don't see an opening. These people are on the agenda. I don't see any of these people that have resigned. Unless he's planning on trying to take this position.
Oh. She was just in my office yesterday and was non-committal about what she wanted to do.
Okay. Well, she hasn't officially resigned, so I question whether or not it's
Well,
going to move tonight.
Her term's up.
Okay.
What we could do is we could postpone consideration of 8A1 and 8C1. Yeah, that's what we should do.
I would recommend that until we get clarification.
A motion has been made to postpone agenda items 8A1 and 8C1. Is there a second?
Second.
Made by Mrs. DeSouza, seconded by Mr. Baker. Any discussion? Those will be postponed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Excuse me, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Should I give a reason within the motion?
Just, the reason is just for clarification that there's an available seat.
Okay.
Okay. Reappointments. Everybody on here has been contacted and has indicated an interest in being reappointed to the board that they currently serve on, with the exception of Barbara Smeagol. So, let's take these, we can do them one at a time, we can do them by boards, whatever you want to do.
Time to do it by boards.
Okay, I'll move to reappoint Claire Babsterner and Robert Cormier to the Elderly Commission for terms expiring December 31st, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered.
I'll move to reappoint Zachary Capiteo to the Ethics Commission as a regular member for a term expiring January 24th, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
I'll move to reappoint Robert Like and Scott Morgan to the Veterans Commission as regular members for terms expiring January 1st, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Scott Morgan is a Republican, not unaffiliated.
See here, I saw him. That's our, you're still on our? I'm Republican. Okay.
Looks like we could make a
Nothing, he's on it now, doesn't change anything. So motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We're going to hold her. Daisy Miller? No. So the next person would be Daisy Miller, who's a seated member, currently a seated member on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Make a motion to reappoint Daisy Miller on the Historical Preservation Commission for a term ending November 15, 2024.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, let me just look it up because I had a question on it. That's the Historical Society? No, we'll be already, I flagged it because of the person that we put on hold. We're all set.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Jim Richards to the Economic Development Commission.
I'll move to reappoint James Richards to the Economic Development Commission as a regular member for a term expiring January 1st, 2024.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
8B8 we should hold too, because she was ambivalent about whether or not she wanted to be reappointed yesterday. And that ties in with the last hold that we did on 8A1 and 8C1.
I'll make that motion.
Can I go back for just a second? I'm sorry. I know 2 meetings ago, I believe it was, we appointed Jim Richards, and that was a term expiring 2021, I believe, or 2020?
It was expiring December 31st
So does
this year.
that leave that there's another spot open, or no?
Jim's seat was filled just because of the way the seat terming had fallen for only like a 6-week period.
Okay.
So what we're doing is re-upping him with a new term that will be going the full 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
So can we get a motion to postpone 8B8?
I'll make that motion to postpone under reappointments, 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alan?
Nope, I'm an aye.
And the last one under reappointments, and we're doing it. Last one under reappointments is Rand Stanley. Rand serves as the hearing officer of towing and impounding vehicles. He has done that for a while. I sent him a letter. I believe it's my appointment, but I'd rather just have the board affirm it rather than assume that's true. The correspondence with him thanking him for his appointment is in there, but I'd like a vote of the board.
Make a motion to accept Rand Stanley as the hearing officer of towing and impounding vehicles for a term expiring November 19, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think I want to pause here. So I'd ask for a motion to recess until the end of the annual town meeting.
Make a motion to recess at 7:26 until the end of the regular town meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of recess?
Aye.
All right, we are recessed. We'll get the other stuff.
Me. With me. Peg it with me. You're welcome. No problem. Yeah, these are.
You know if you guys received the application for the vacancies of alternate on the EDC?
Yes, that's under new appointments. Those were just reappointments. Do you need an agenda, Bob? There's some right there. Hi, how are you? Great. Good, thanks. Yes.
We have annual town reports if anybody would like.
I will. Okay.
I think we'll be good.
How are you? Come on. Anyone else?
How are you? Good, good to see you.
I have three resolutions. Who would like resolution number 1?
Sure.
I'm going to call it. If you read it, then you say I move the foregoing resolution. Anybody else? I have number 2.
Hey.
Let it be borrowed.
Well, nobody was doing it, so.
Anyone else have one more?
Don't you just think of everything? Jason.
What are they doing?
Oh, yeah, there's like a huge black strip across it. Okay. Alan's looking at it now. Oh, it's electrical tape across the center. I'm just kidding, that's what it looks like. Okay. All right.
Okay, it's 7:30. I'm going to call the annual town meeting to order. First item of business is an election of a moderator. Are there nominations?
Nominate Jason Biles as moderator.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
Motion to close nominations.
Motion made by Rebecca Talamini to close nominations. Is there a second?
Second.
seconded by Sarah Muska. All in favor of closing nominations, please say aye. Aye. All in favor of Jason Bowser serving as moderator for tonight's town meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? I'm now going to ask the town clerk to read the town meeting public notice.
Town of East Windsor Annual Public Town Meeting Notice. The legal voters of the town of East Windsor are hereby warned that a town meeting will be held at Town Hall, 11 Rye Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut, on Thursday, December 19, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. for the following. Number 1, to consider and act upon a resolution that the reports of the Selectman, Town Treasurer, and other town officers be accepted as printed, errors and omissions accepted. Number 2, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing and empowering the first Selectman and Town Treasurer to borrow from time to time on behalf of and in the name of the town for the purpose of meeting current expenses until the tax monies are available, and to issue notes for same, and to determine the amount of such notes, and to execute, sell, and deliver same. Number 3, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the Selectmen as provided in Chapter 240, Part 11A of the General Statutes of the State of Connecticut, revision of 1959, and as amended, to enter into any and all agreements with the Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Transportation relative to the expenditure of any unexpended balance of highway funds allotment due to the town on July 1st, 2020, and to enter into an agreement with said Commissioner concerning the expenditure of said allotment. Dated at East Windsor, Connecticut, this 13th day of December 2019, East Windsor Board of Selectmen, Jason E. Bauza, First Selectman, Marie D'Souza, Deputy First Selectman, Charles F. Nordell, Selectman, Sarah A. Muska, Selectman, Alan Baker, Selectman.
Thank you, Joanne. I'll now read the eligibility to vote. At any town meeting other than a regular or special town election, or at any meeting of any fire, sewer, or school district, or any other municipal subdivision of any town incorporated by any special act, any person who is an elector of such town may vote, and any citizen of the United States of the age of 18 years or more, who jointly or severally is liable to the town, district, or subdivision for taxes assessed against him on an assessment of not less than $1,000 on the last completed grand list of such town, district, or subdivision, or who would be so liable if not entitled to an exemption under Connecticut General Statutes, subdivisions 17, 19, 22, 23, 25, or 26 of Section 12-81 may vote unless restricted by the provisions of any special act relating to such town, district, or subdivision. So we're going to just park that. I will now ask whoever has resolution number 1 to move it forward.
Do I have to say my name?
Yep. Yep.
Jillian Hubbard, 40 Mill Street. To consider and act upon a resolution that the reports of the Selectmen, Town Treasurer, and other town officers be accepted as printed, errors and omissions accepted. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Anderson. Any discussion? So the town meeting, or the annual town report was distributed. This is the first time that the town of East Windsor has used CCM, not only for printing, but also for layout. We were also the first community that has used CCM for this feature, so I think the end product came out pretty well, and it's a way of deferring costs to somebody else to pay instead of the town having to do it. So, that said, all in favor of adopting the annual report as presented?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Report is accepted. Resolution number 2.
Rebecca Palomini, 34 Rush Street, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing and empowering the first selectman and town treasurer to borrow from time to time on behalf of and in the name of the town for the purpose of meeting current expenses until the tax monies are available, and to issue notes for the same, and to determine the amount of such notes, and to execute, sell, and deliver same. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't see who did it. Oh, Jillian. Any discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. So carried. Resolution number 3.
Robert Light, 80 Rise Street, item 3, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the selectmen as provided in Chapter 240, Part 11A, the General Statutes of the State of Connecticut, revision of 1959, and as amended, to enter into any and all agreements with the Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Transportation relative to the expenditure of any unexpended balance of highway funds allotment due to the town on July 1, 2020, and to enter into an agreement with said commissioner concerning the expenditure of said allotment. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Light, seconded by Ms. Palomini. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That concludes the business.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn and seconded. It's non-debatable. All in favor, please say
Everybody made such a stink about it on
I think there's some on the thing out there. I think.
I don't believe there is anymore, because applications for appointments and things. Yeah, there wasn't any out there.
Still not quite right over there. That's what's actually running still.
It actually might work fine in the recording.
Yeah, it's recording and it's getting the sound. That's cut off.
June, I think that runs through June 30th. Okay, it is 7:38. We'll reconvene the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We left off at agenda item 8C2 under new appointments.
Make a motion to appoint Noreen Farmer for the Board of Finance alternate position, term expiring November 16, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Make a
Go ahead.
motion to appoint Kurt Kutschel to the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Agency, regular member for a term expiring December 19, 2022.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All members are slowly.
Give me time.
I would make a recommendation that we double check on Kurt
Capsule.
Kutschel for the Conservation Commission, for the last conversation I had with him was we went back and forth between the two agencies, and we decided that he would best serve on the wetlands,
So you're saying he's interested in maybe one but not both?
right, and the one that he was interested in after discussion with the inland wetlands, so unless somebody else talked to him other than I,
Would you do me a favor and check with him before our next meeting? Just let me know. So a motion would be in order to postpone that.
make a motion to postpone C4 until next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll move to appoint Maria Rumor to the Economic Development Commission as an alternate member for a term expiring January 1st, 2023.
Second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no? So carried.
Next one.
I'll move to appoint Peter Sanders as an alternate member on the Veterans Commission for a term expiring December 19th, 2023.
Second.
Marie?
Last meeting, we reassigned Rick Webster for a position, and I'm not sure if we have an opening, because I'm not sure exactly what this one means. Vacant Lori Titus, term ends 2023. Did she resign? And is that the opening? And if that's the opening, then that would be an alternate position, not, that would be the alternate position for Pete, but I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Mr. Barton, can you help us out?
Yes. Lori's name shouldn't be there. She's been off the board for a long time. Is that the question?
Yes.
Lori Titus,
Lori Titus.
she's been off.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's the only vacancy we have as
Yep.
alternate, and we'd like Peter.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
You good?
Yep, I'm good.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? So carried. Okay. Now, the good news is that's 2 of our 3 pages done. The next one, so at our last meeting, we discussed the formation of a new charter revision commission. And I looked at the relevant statute and I put together a draft of a motion for consideration, and it's in your packet labeled as 9A. So with that, if anybody would like to discuss or make a motion, we can do that.
I'll make a motion to open the town charter for review and possible revisions and establish a charter revision commission. The commission shall consist of...
That's why I wasn't doing that right away.
Okay.
So we're gonna just hold off on that just for a second. The statute allows us to have between 5 and 15 members of the Charter Revision Commission. So first we need to figure out how many is a reasonable number to do. And then I think Charlie has a motion to make.
I'd say 7.
I'm fine with 7. I was actually going to say that. so.
Yeah, 7's a good group.
Good with 7 as well.
Charlie?
So I will continue. So the commission shall consist of 7 members. The commission should consider minor and technical changes thought necessary by the commission, consider reviewing the charter's budget processes as outlined in Chapter 8 of the town charter, and make other recommendations as deemed necessary by the commission.
Second.
Any further, any discussion?
Yeah, are we gonna make a specific charge, or are we gonna weed out things in the end, which could be, offensive to people that work for, a year? Are we gonna put a time limit on it?
So I attempted to do a charge there in the suggested motion. You'll note by talking about minor and technical changes, kind of administrative in nature, and then the budget process is the one I heard most about. And then my thought when we had originally, well, a number of people I have talked to have suggested limiting the number of questions that are put out there. So I effectively put a charge per question. So your technical minor revision question a budgetary question and a question to be determined by the members of the commission. That is an attempt to stop 12 questions from hitting the ballot again and you having to turn it like 3/4 sideways in order to squeeze everything on there. That's a suggestion. It's not something that we need to do. So if the board thinks that we need to revisit that differently. I noticed when you were deputy for selectman 6 or 8 years ago, the Board of Selectmen went painstakingly through chapter by chapter before calling the charge. But if we're going to make, if the intention is still to make a presidential ballot deadline, they only have a 9-month window anyway. And you guys spent 6 months going through the charter before you got to the starting line. They'll never make it if we don't kind of give them some parameters at this point and then say, we recognize the time frame is limited. These are the areas that we want to do or think that might pass muster with voters. Come back to us. I think if we're going to go the more elongated route, we should just forget the presidential election and aim for gubernatorial.
I like that, what you were going with the 1, 2, and 3, but the third one, it's a little loose there. It's like, make other recommendations. You could end up with 17, so like.
But ultimately, we decide the questions and make the ballot. So
Yeah.
if we're stating in the public domain at this point that our intention is not to have an overabundance of questions for consideration, is to have 3 or 4, we're effectively putting them on notice now to say, look at whatever you want. You have this much time, but we're only going to entertain 3 or 4. That's what my intention is.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, the 3 or 4 part of it.
And the number of questions is ultimately up to us.
And I believe if you read last month's meeting minutes, that was what was everybody here more or less agreed with, that we wanted to move forward with, to make sure that we had 3 or 4 questions now. So, and I think with the recent experience that everybody has gone through over the course of the last 18 months, I think it's a doable objective for anyone that's on that board to accomplish in order to get it on the ballot.
So Charlie's put forward a motion. Any other discussion on it?
What do they have to be done for us to be able to go through all the legal stuff that we have to go through?
They need to finish their process sometime in August. And then it's playing with the calendar based on when the election date is for the presidential. I think it's November 6th. Something like that. So we need to work backwards from there with a specific time frame that is outlined in statute. I haven't gotten to that point yet. So we're trying to get them to a starting point so that they can start doing the stuff that they need to do. And then that deadline will be important.
Okay.
And, if it looks like it's not feasible, then, we examine what other options are. You could push it a year, you could push it, I need to get clarification with the statute says we can, I read it. We had up to 18 months after the commission finished to put it on the ballot, which would be the gubernatorial. But I need to get clarification that is in fact, that I've read what I think I read.
Maybe I have a cheat sheet I made up with the last time I still have.
Yeah, so the intention is to give them an opportunity to get started so that they can, whoever they are, we can't actually vote anybody in until we have a commission formed and a charge established. So by doing that, we're taking the next step, and then at our, what is now January 9th meeting, we'll be able to start populating that commission if we have that.
Good.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Chief, would you mind terribly if I took you out of order? There's a guest from away who has a presentation ahead of you that I think will be much shorter than yours.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion to go out of order for item 10A to include Catherine Marks.
So Catherine Marks is, motion's been made, seconded. All in favor of going out of order?
Aye.
Opposed, no. So Catherine, come on up. Catherine is a representative of, correct me if I get this wrong, but the U.S. Census Bureau,
Correct.
who is spearheading a complete census committee in many communities in Connecticut. She wants to tell us a little bit about what that would mean here.
Yes.
So,
So I have a presentation. Is there a? Do we all know what that means? Because everybody seems to know what that means. While he gets that information, I'll talk. Chief, thank you for letting me go ahead of you, and I promise to be quick.
We have them.
you got those back? Or is it in my email?
It's in your,
Looks like it's right there on the desk.
it should be right there on the desktop.
Right in the
On
middle.
desktop, I got it.
So I'm a partnership specialist with the New York Region Census Bureau. We cover Vermont to New Jersey and Puerto Rico. They didn't send me to Puerto Rico, they sent me to East Windsor. So what we do is we work within the communities to talk about the census, why it's safe, easy, and important, and also tell you about the new things that are happening for the 2020 census. We're gearing up for the holidays and the new year, and as soon as we turn that calendar, the 2020 census is upon us. And it is very important for East Windsor to get a complete and accurate count. Thank you, sir.
I think that's things like this.
Okay. So it's wonderful that the town made you some copies, so please take them home and share them. That's okay, I'm just going to keep on talking. So the Census Bureau does over 130 surveys and programs. We're actually the nation's largest leading provider of statistics. Some of the most popular programs that we do are on that board, but I'm here to talk to you about the Decennial Census. Does anyone remember filling out, getting either the long form or the short form of the census? Remember way back when? Yeah. So the long form is actually now called the American Community Survey that we actually do every year. So everyone, when they're doing the 2020 census this year, will actually get the short form. We are very concerned about confidentiality and making sure that people are comfortable with us entering their homes if they do not self-respond. And we do know that there's going to be bad actors out there. This gives you some awareness of when we are in your community to do surveys. Again, we're in communities all the time, not just on the Decennial Census, but the American Community Survey. We're actually in your community every year trying to get responses. And I'm just going through this fast. Obviously, if anyone has any questions, they can stop me. I don't know what just happened.
No, we haven't.
We went really fast.
We're done?
That's funny. So I'm here to talk about the 2020 census, and I'm very used to technology problems every single town that I go to. But you all did have the quickest town meeting I've ever seen in my entire life. So congratulations on that. Okay, so we're here to talk about the 2020 census. The census is mandated in the United States Constitution in the enumeration clause right up top for the purpose of apportionment of the House of Representatives. So the number of representatives each state gets is based on the decennial census data. So it changes every 10 years. In the state of Connecticut, we also draw state legislative districts, both for the House of Representatives and for the Senate, based on decennial census data. Very important to our communities. Census data also determines how federal funds flow from the federal government down to the states, to the tune of $675 billion every year. So if we don't get the census right, it means we're not getting the money that we should get. What are those programs? Those programs are Medicaid, school lunch programs, SNAP, Section 8 housing, highway fundings, all money that we need in our communities and we need here in East Windsor. We are sworn, okay, I don't know what's happening to this, but I'm going to just really do my best.
Just let me know
We
when you're
do-
ready for the slide, I'll just drive.
Okay. We do the census every 10 years. First census we had was in 1790, and Thomas Jefferson was actually the director of the census. And we've done it for every 10 years since. This is actually our 25th census. Again, the census is very important. It's about representation and funding. I covered almost all of those. Next. The census is safe. We are very, very committed to confidentiality. It is actually federal code, Title 13, that responses cannot be used against the respondent in any manner, in any way, by any agency, federal, state, or local. What does that mean? That means that your respondents are protected, and the federal government, meaning the FBI, the CIA, ICE, DHS, the state of Connecticut, or the East Windsor Housing Authority cannot use those responses against you in any way. That ensures that we get the most accurate data. We are so committed to confidentiality that census employees like myself, we take a lifetime oath of office to protect your confidential information. If I were to violate that oath, it would be 5 years in prison and or $250,000 in fines. We're going to be holding the most technologically advanced census ever, and we're using the most advanced forms of data security. And the census is easy. You are going to have a number of ways to respond to the census. You're going to be able to respond to the census for the first time by phone, talking to a real person. You are also going to be able to respond to the census online. You're going to be able to respond to the census by the traditional paper copy. If you choose to do none of those three, we will knock on your door and you'll be able to respond to the census with a census taker at your door. What we're going to ask for, the census is actually very short. We are only going to ask for your name, your date of birth, your age, date of birth and age, your telephone number, whether you rent, own your home, whether you're Hispanic origin, what your race is, how many people are in your household, and then your relationship to the other people in your household. That is it. If someone comes to your house and asks for a social security number, they are not from the U.S. Census Bureau taking the decennial census. If someone comes to you asking for money, saying that they're from the U.S. Census, that is not us. And if someone asks about political affiliation, again, that is not us. So we know that there's going to be bad actors out there. So the census is very short and very easy. And again, you're going to have 4 ways to respond to the census. We know that we live in a very diverse country. And again, we want the most accurate data that we can get. So online and on phone, you will be able to respond to the census in English and 12 non-English languages. By offering these 13 options, we believe that we will be able to account for 99% of the population. In addition, we are also offering guides in 59 non-English languages. So if you speak primarily Urdu and you need a guide to understand what a census is, we will have that guide. All the languages are there. When is this all happening? This is happening sooner than you think. The first invitation to respond will hit mailboxes between March 12th and 20th. Then you're going to get a series of reminders up until the end of April. At that point, if you have not completed your census, you will get a knock on the door. Again, it's going to be an invitation to respond online or by the phone. We have jobs. Again, my purpose of my presentation is to tell you that the census is safe, the census is easy, the census is important, but we also will be hiring thousands of people in Connecticut to help us with the enumeration. What jobs we have? Primarily we have enumeration jobs. They pay upwards of $21 an hour in the state of Connecticut, and it is very easy to apply to those jobs. The website is there, 2020census.gov/jobs. You do not need a resume, and you do not need a cover letter. It is just your information with a series of questions. What do we want? We know we're going to need to enumerate in East Windsor, and we want people from East Windsor to apply for these jobs so that we can hire them and they can enumerate in East Windsor. The jobs, you're applying for the jobs now, you'll get a phone call in January, February, we train in the spring, and then again, we start the enumeration towards the end of April, all the way through July. And they're part-time and flexible, which means you pick your schedule, and we work with you. Milestones for 2020 census. We have a statistics in schools program. I'm not sure if there's anyone here from the school system, but we have a program that was made by teachers for teachers to ensure that the 2020 census can get into the curriculum of the school and that statistics can get in the curriculum of the school. So it's a great program that we hope that we can talk to the East Windsor schools about. Our advertising is going to begin in earnest in January 2020. We're going to do group quarter enumeration right around March. What is group quarter enumeration? Group quarter enumeration means that we have a special way of counting prisons, universities, nursing homes, and the homeless. So we're going to go and do those very special types of enumeration. Census Day is April 1st, and it's no joking matter. What does Census Day mean? Census Day is a point in time. A point in time. If you are not sure where to put your address for the census, you put it in for where you are living on April 1st, 2020, and the questionnaire will guide you through that. If a child lives with his or her parents 50% of the time, where that child lays his or her head to rest on the night of April 1st, 2020 is where that child is counted. It is so important to count young children. Again, we're going to do the enumeration then from May through end of July, and everything per the Constitution, the apportionment must be handed to the President of the United States December 31st, 2020, so there is an end date. I'm here to ask the East Windsor Selectmen to form a complete count committee. What are complete count committees? I have them throughout the state of Connecticut. That's when a group of people come together because they want to ensure that they have a complete count. We work disseminating information to them, and they work within their community, different organizations. Who would be on a complete count committee? The school, the government, somebody from the church, maybe someone from the police department, and then some civic groups. And that ensures that we do get into the community at every level. The 2020 census is the largest peacetime mobilization effort to happen on U.S. soil, but the only way to ensure a complete count is for it to happen at a grassroots basis. And the Complete Count Committee are the trusted voices in the community, and they can help us get out that information. These are the phases of the census. Again, we're in the education and motivation phase, and I'm hoping to motivate you to have a complete count committee. Next steps. What do I do? What can I do for this committee? I have information, lots of information. I've already shared with your first selectman, and that information is, going to be continuing for, all the new programs. And in fact, once we start getting responses in March, I am actually going to be able to look at East Windsor's census tract on a daily basis to see how we're doing. So if we're not doing very well, we can then go to the Complete Count Committee and say, we need to do something more. People aren't responding. So it's a real technological advantage to have the Complete Count Committee in your town, to have the relationships with the census so that you do get an accurate count in East Windsor. This is just one of the most exciting things about the census is we are using the data to make sure that we have a more accurate count and to understand what's happened in the community so we can understand the messaging. So we've created something called the Response Outreach Area Mapper, which we're using our data from the American Community Survey so that you can understand your demographics, your housing, and your socioeconomic information to understand how to message it for the outreach for the Complete Count Committee. So East Windsor has 2 census tracts. Is that 4841?
Yes.
Okay, either that or it's my eye test for the year. That's 4841. So for the whole for the whole country, we have a map. And if something blows up a little bit green or really blue, Hartford's really blue. Almost all of Hartford is going to be very difficult to count. And East Windsor has a green and a little bit of blue. There's a little bit of challenge here. And this information here that I've outlined sort of talks about some of the challenges, and it can help us, again, formulate our communication. One of the things that you're going to see in both these is that you have a high renter ratio in these areas. And renters tend not to self-enumerate. Why? Because they get the invitation to respond and it says occupant of 12 Rye Street. They might think that belongs to the landlord. And what we need to do is say, no, it belongs to you. You need to be counted. Our goal is to count everyone residing in the United States. Everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Next. So this is your other Census Tract 4842, and as you can see, that's a little bit darker blue. Can you give me the low response rate there?
Low response rate?
Yeah.
20.7.
So it's our estimation based on our statistics that 20.7% of the residents in that census tract will not self-respond. We want to get that to be lower. We want them to self-respond because we want them to have an accurate count. So you can go on this row mapper, you can look at this statistics, it's available free to the public, and you can look at statistics for surrounding communities as well. I would be dismissed if I didn't give a plug for my data dissemination team. If you start getting really excited about census data and you want to know more, we have a whole team that will come out and teach you all how to go in and grab our data, and it's just a great tool. And we are not live on this particular presentation, but this is just an example of some of the great advertising that we have. So that pretty much concludes my information. I hope that I was short enough, but did give you enough information to understand, why it's so important to get involved in the 2020 census, why it's safe, easy, and important. And I'm available for questions if you have them.
Any questions for Catherine? Any questions from the board for Catherine?
I have a question over.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, real quick, two quick questions. One is this, for no good reason, which is why we fought the Civil War. That's what the South was doing, and now we're doing it nationwide. It's absolutely atrocious. So, to me, my kids are Americans, and that's how they get registered, because they were born in America. I was born in America, and that's it. I'm an American. I'm not anything else. The rest is garbage. I think it's totally ridiculous. So that's my answers, and that's how they would be presented. My wife was born in Hong Kong. That's a different entity entirely. And that's how that will be responded, and always has been.
Okay. Did you have a question for me, or just a comment?
How are you going to handle it?
You can do whatever you want with it, but that's how it's coming. I'm just going to let you know ahead of time. That's the way it'll be, and that's the only answers you'll get out of me.
Well, I'm glad that you're going to fill out the census, so we got 2 in East Windsor. But you bring up a good point. This is your census. So a lot of people ask, how do I answer the questions? And you can answer the questions how you want, because it indeed is your census.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it
Go ahead.
mandated that you fill out the census?
It is
It is by law.
in the Constitution.
In the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
From a security standpoint, hypothetically, if I want to be a census worker and I don't have to do a resume, what kind of a background check do you do?
We do background checks. So
Do I have to be bonded?
do you have to be bonded? No, we do fingerprints and a background check.
Any other questions? Yes.
This is a silly question. I've never filled out a census. But at the time that the last one would have been done, I was a military spouse. Is that the reason why I didn't need to fill out a census, did they do it?
Okay. So the last census was 2010. We do treat military differently. So I don't know who filled out your census for you. But again, it's one per household, so maybe someone took care of it for you. But we do treat military differently.
That's what I was curious about, is if military had gotten treated differently, because when this had gone out, I had lived on, you know, I was in the military spouse. I was curious about that, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Tom Lancer. So we would be counting everybody, including non-citizens, right?
We are counting everyone who resides in the United States as of April 1st, 2020. Correct. So if a student from China is at the University of Connecticut, when we do our group quarter enumeration, that student would be counted in Storrs, Connecticut. If that Chinese student is living off campus in Willington, that student would have to self-enumerate in the apartment he or she, or the house he or she is living in Willington.
So if I am if I'm a student who's studying abroad during I'm from East Windsor and I'm studying in Italy for the spring semester, am I not getting counted?
Correct.
Interesting.
That was my question.
Other questions for Catherine? Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
how would you count the homeless person if you're not counting an address or a
Excellent.
location?
Excellent question. We do we take counting the homeless very seriously. We are working with the towns to get addresses where people might be experiencing homelessness. We know the shelters, but for example, there's a bridge, I believe, in this town that I'm standing in, and I know the address, so we have that address listed. So we will go out in one night and go out and enumerate the people who are experiencing homelessness. There is a shorter survey that we try our best to enumerate them with. If they're unable to complete that, then we at least will count them as one. But it's important that we do, again, communicate with the town so that we do have that address. There's a tent city up in northeastern Connecticut I know about, and then there's the steps of the Hartford Public Library in Hartford, to name a few.
Yes, sir.
How would you enumerate somebody that can't speak and is homeless, that can't actually communicate?
One person.
Just that. No other.
You said every citizen will be counted in the United States.
Every resident.
Every resident. How do you determine whether they're legal residents?
You don't?
Our mission is to count every single person residing in the United States as of April 1st, 2020, as they did in 1790.
Politicians alone.
How would you tell them?
But I think what the point is you're getting, the point of the census on a very basic level is to get funding for this town has 1,000, they have 500, how to divvy it up. So it doesn't matter if we have illegal people here, people that are coming in from China for schools, they're using resources, we're trying to get the federal funding for that. So it really doesn't matter who they are or whatever, if they're residing here, you want them on paper so we can get more federal funding to help take care of that.
It's a population
Is that kind
count.
of
It's a population count.
I know several years back when they changed the law to give all the incarcerated inmates that are housed in Enfield, they get credit for all of them regardless of where they come from. What's to say that those inmates aren't being double counted if you're using April 1st as a deadline date? I fill mine out in January and I get arrested and wind up being incarcerated on April 1st. They're going to count me in their census, and you've got me counted in my residence census.
Okay, so first of all, she's correct that prisons are counted in the group quarter enumeration. So those that are incarcerated will be counted in the town that they are incarcerated. The census starts on March 12th through 20th. When you fill out the census, if someone is incarcerated in your household, there's actually a box to fill out so that we do not double count.
If that's not filled out, does the town, if the prison residing, get more tax, more enumeration than?
Go ahead.
Don't diss the chairman. So,
They get a bonus.
Yeah.
so wherever that prison is, they help us with the group quarter enumeration. So, for example, we don't go try to count every single dorm at stores. They give us a list. That's called group quarter enumeration. The same with the prisons. They'll give us a list. And then we have ways that if then someone puts that person on their form and they says they are incarcerated, we have a system that we will not double count that person. Did I answer your question, sir?
I guess for now, yeah, from the census standpoint.
Okay.
But the prison gets credit in the town which the prisons are in, like Enfield gets way extra dollars
Right,
for
that's what
having
I think
people
his
incarcerated.
question was.
And their excuse back then was the fact that their roads are being used more often because of it.
And that's the argument for why there are communities around Connecticut that are being asked to do this, is because the more complete the count is in East Windsor, the more representative or reflective our potential state and federal funding would be based on population distribution. Is that correct?
Yes, and can I just add one
Yes.
point? I neglected to say one point. I tried to go very fast, and there's just a plethora of information. In both of your census districts, you have a lot of children in this town. You have a lot of families with small children. Small children are undercounted for various reasons. Parents don't put their children on the census. It is so important for all of those programs that affect young children, affect education, that you get an accurate count in East Windsor for those children. Why? Because if someone doesn't count, if your first selectman doesn't count your brand new baby, right?
Oh, he's getting counted.
Okay. If he doesn't get counted, the next time that we'll have a chance to count him is in 2030. So I usually use an example of a 3-year-old, because if someone doesn't count a 3-year-old in 2020, we have to live with this data for 10 years. So the next time we're going to count that child is 2030. And that school system in East Windsor has lost all that funding. Not lost it, but hasn't received what they need. So it's very important, again, if you do form a complete count committee, to get the schools involved, to send the information home so that those parents understand, to figure out where to count those children, if they're living in a blended family, if they're not living in a blended family, to ensure that they put those children on the census forms.
So Catherine, when we spoke privately, you had a very interesting statistic that I think illustrates that. How much money does the state of Connecticut get in federal assistance each year?
I don't want to misspeak, so. Lovely, it's not in this packet. 10.7 billion dollars, state of Connecticut.
So the state of Connecticut gets $10.7 billion in federal assistance for a myriad of programs.
Correct.
You take the $10.7 billion and you divide that by the 3.6 million people who live in Connecticut, and it equates to roughly, I'm rounding, but it equates to roughly $2,700 per person per year, which that illustrates why it's so important for us to get a complete count in East Windsor, is because there's an opportunity for us to miss out on 10 years worth of $10 billion per person.
Yep. And if you're doing, again, this is just so much information, but if you're doing any planning projects, this is the years to count, because you're going to be using that number, for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
Just a question, if I'm living in East Windsor and I have a college age or a high school age child that is at the University of Connecticut or at a private school somewhere in the state, where does that individual get counted? With the group or with you?
Okay. So if the child is in a high school, living away, going to a high school, he or she would be counted with you. If they're away for college, they're counted at the university. So I have a number of children. One's at school in Chicago, Illinois, and one is in school in Brunswick, Maine. So my household, they will not be in my count.
But I'm here in Connecticut, and my son or daughter's at UConn.
Yes, and your son or daughter, if they're living at UConn, they will be counted at UConn.
Up there, and there's a way on the census to exclude them from
Yes.
you filling it out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. You're welcome. And if you have grandparents living with you, aunts and uncles, couch surfers, non-relatives, grandchildren, anyone who is living in your house on April 1st needs to be counted.
So we should all invite people to couch surf in our houses so that we have more people on April 1st.
Just for the long weekend anyway.
April 1st, big town party.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So how does the education part of the census get out to everybody? Like, obviously, everybody here has learned the importance of it, but people who are not here, how do they get that information in a short bit? If someone's knocking at my door, I'm not listening to a 20-minute speech. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's very important, so
Even
how
though
do you
it's
get
kind
that
of
across
funny,
to very
right.
big dense?
So the census is not only important, right? It's easy and safe.
Yeah.
And that's going to be through the Complete Count Committee and through a lot of PSAs that we're doing.
Okay.
There's just, you'll see the big push come January.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I've never taken it before, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Do you advertise on TV?
Yes. Yes. There'll be a big push in January.
Already started, haven't you?
We've started a lot with the jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we have to hire thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Yes. So if you know of anyone who wants a part-time job, or if you want to get that couch surfer job.
Tom?
This would be a great thing to have on the Warehouse Point Fire Department sign.
Oh, yeah.
This would be, I mean, I'm really pushing that. That'd be a
March.
great thing to have on the sign.
We should have the fire department be part of the Complete Count Committee. And
No, it's just a great advertising venue.
you're the first fire department that has ever volunteered for me so
I'm
far.
not on the fire department.
Oh!
She's going to volunteer.
Is that how the volunteer thing works?
Because you did a beautiful job on that sign.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Catherine Marks? Okay. Catherine, thank you very much.
Thank
So, just do me a favor, hang around for a bit, because there might be some other questions from us.
I can work for hours back here.
Catherine graciously provided me a number of sample resolutions that have been adopted by communities around Connecticut, and they were included in the package. So I hope board members had a chance to take a look at them. There are, and I'm going to probably call on her again in a moment, but there are different degrees and levels by which communities are engaging in a complete census count. Actually, I'm going to call on you for that. Can you explain a little bit about the contrast?
So the complete, just as the census is your own census, the Complete Count Committee is what works for your town. So based on towns' charters and the way towns are set up, they either do a resolution or a proclamation, which is why I gave you a few of those. And again, you take a group of people that represent your community and where you think can help spread the message. And you put them, however your governing body chooses to get them onto the Complete Count Committee. Usually the first time we meet, I'll give a presentation. However, it works best for the committee so that they, again, can learn as well about the importance. And then we meet, whether you want to meet once a month, we can meet by phone, I can come here to push it forward. Between when you set up the committee, there's just going to be just 3.5 months before people in East Windsor are going to start getting their information. So it's a pretty short time frame for you all to have.
And can you give a little bit of a breakdown on what some of the workload may entail for the committee members?
Right, so I heard you guys were doing a charter revision commission. It's certainly not that. It has a very specific end date. What it is to suggest ideas like the board for the fire department. Because you know, again, it's a grassroots effort. You know what's going to work in East Windsor. You know, do you have a local paper where you want to, you know, put some letters to the editor in? You know, do you have a Facebook page, a community Facebook page that you want to get in? How do we get the information into the packets of the school? Those are the types of thing that the Complete Count Committee works on, and they create a calendar so that we can start addressing those issues so that we can educate people and get them information out to them. So I meet, you know, twice a month in West Hartford. It's a committee of 20 people with a subcommittee of 30 people. And then I have very small ones in Bolton that we've met a couple of times, and they're sort of on their own. So it depends on how the town wants to do it.
Any questions? Okay, so there are, you might as well just stick close by.
Okay.
There are 4 sample resolutions that she provided. One is from Bolton, one is from Tolland, one is from West Hartford, and I think the other one is from Stonington. And they take kind of different approaches to things. So before we get into which one do we like, do we want to do this? Is this something that we want to ask volunteers to volunteer for an additional thing for?
Yes, absolutely. I
I
say
think we
absolutely.
Okay. So that said, we would need to. What's your time frame on this? Is this something that we could do on January 9th? Or is
Absolutely.
That, okay.
Absolutely. And if you want to propose something, you know, and you and I could go back and forth, but that's absolutely fine.
Okay. So that's great then. That's probably what
I think that would be
we'll do.
better. Working in a committee like this might be difficult to
Yeah.
get a, yeah.
So with that in mind, I looked at all 4 of these, and there's one that I thought was probably the best fit for the community, and that was the one that was impaneled by Tolland. So it's the second one in your packet. What's that? The other one that I thought was okay was the one from West Hartford without the 50 volunteers. I didn't really have much use for or I didn't think it was a great fit for us, the Stonington one. My preference would be the Tolland example. And Sarah, did you have a preference?
I tended to actually like the Stonington one, with the exception of some of the people that were involved, but I tended to like the detail in that one and the efforts as far as, you know, getting the high school principal involved to try to obtain high school students to get involved.
Yeah, I think the Tolland one incorporates that, with a representative from the school system and a representative from the Board of Education separate. So that's what I liked about the Tolland one, and perhaps the Stonington one was just further along, but the resolution that started this with Tolland didn't really enumerate who the specific people were, whereas so for example, I haven't talked to Dr. DeBarge to determine whether or not we could put the superintendent on there, but it would make some sense to say, from my perspective, it would make some sense to say a representative from the school system and a representative from the Board of Ed. And then if it's the superintendent, that's great. If she has a designee that she prefer, okay. That's why I was gravitating towards Tolland. Charlie, Andy? I'm sorry, Alan.
Yes,
Andy.
I don't know. Yeah.
Andy Shepard stuff.
I'm fine with the Tolland one. I mean, we can almost do it because it's not specifying a specific person to go ahead and live.
Right. Charlie?
I agree.
Okay, so that said, they have a resolution here. Do you guys, I would prefer to just kind of mark this up and have it for January 19th unless anybody wants to. Is that okay? All right. Catherine, thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
You too. So a motion would be in order to return to the call of the agenda.
Make a motion, we return to regular order.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Chief Barton, how are you? Good. So are you doing a presentation on behalf of the department, the district, or both fire organizations?
I'm doing a presentation on behalf of the fire district with the Broadbrook Fire Department.
Okay, so Chief Arcari, you
Well,
want
we
to
don't know much about it, actually, so we're just like new to us too, so.
Okay,
We weren't involved in making this,
okay.
let's put it that way. We were, Jimmy sent me the thing over a couple weeks ago. Like I said, the board hasn't looked at it, so we don't even know much about it, so I guess.
Okay, so would it be the best use of your time and presence here then for the chief to go through the presentation and then for us for you to participate in the discussion as we go along, or bounce questions
That's
off?
fine. I mean, I read the whole thing, and like, service district, I don't have much information about it. I asked the treasurer about it, she couldn't find much about it, so, town treasurer.
Okay, well, feel free to chime in where you think most helpful then. So that said, Chief Barton.
Okay, well, everybody knows why we're here. We've been going over this quite a bit. Fire service funding solutions for the East Windsor residents and that are living in the Warehouse Point Fire District. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm James Barton, Fire Chief for the Warehouse Point Fire District. I'm a lifelong resident of East Windsor, 30 years of service with the fire department in the town of East Windsor, 15 years as the chief of the department, and 25 years experience as a fire officer. There's a couple definitions here just because I wanted to make the slides a little more presentable. We're familiar with most of them. The one that we're not maybe familiar with is the SSD, which is a Special Services District, which we'll talk about a little later. So the Warehouse Point Fire District was created in 1911 through a special act of the Connecticut Legislature. Warehouse Point Fire District is a taxing authority and provides service for the people of the fire district. In 1986, the district was expanded to cover to the South Windsor town line and south, and basically pretty much Scannick Road, Scannick River, and Wells Road. Just a little information on the department right now. Warehouse Point District responded to 700 calls for service so far this year as of January. And I just did a little comparison. 2013, we were at 402 calls. In 2009, we had 441 calls. So the call volume's going up. The Fire Service Maintainer Program we started 2 years ago. And basically what this does is it puts staff in the firehouse, 3 different shifts. First shift is 7 to 3. Second shift is 8 to 4, and third shift is 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. This ensures a driver is available during these times, and that's basically because we're short on volunteers. Volunteers are all working their regular jobs during these hours, so we need to make sure that we can provide protection for the people of East Windsor. In July, the Warehouse Point Fire District was able to fund putting 2 more guys on from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Tuesday through Saturday night at our fire headquarters for the overnight shift, because we were lacking volunteers there too. The Fire Service Maintainer Program guarantees that all the equipment's being checked on a daily basis, and that the firehouses are cleaned and maintained. And the program ensures that we have emergency personnel on scene within 5 to 7 minutes of dispatch. District versus department. The Warrells Point Fire Department Incorporated is basically an incorporation. It's the membership, and Broadbrook has pretty much the same deal. The district is the actual funding, and this is going to come into play a little later, but there's two different entities that provide fire protection. It's the Fire Department Incorporated, and it's the fire district, and it's basically like that because this is how the fire department started out, and they would basically provide fire protection with fundraisers until that became extinct and you couldn't do it anymore. And Broadbrook is pretty much, I don't know if you want to comment, Tommy, but Broadbrook is pretty much, they have a incorporated version, and they get their funding from the town of East Windsor. The root of the problem, East Windsor residents living in Warrells Point currently pay 100% of Warrells Point district services. East Windsor residents living in Warrells Point currently contribute through their portion of their town taxes the funding for the Broadbrook Fire Department. East Windsor residents not living in the Warrells Point Fire District do not contribute to the Warrells Point Fire District fire services. It's unfair to the residents living in Warrells Point to contribute to the entire town fire services when East Windsor residents living outside of the district do not. Why we're here. I'm just going to go over the same thing. We just basically went over that. So fire services for the town of East Windsor are provided cohesively from the Warrells Point Fire District and the Broadbrook Fire Department. Out of those 700 calls that we were on, we respond together on probably 300 of them. How did we get here? Years of the town failing to fund capital improvement projects for the Warrells Point Fire District. May of 2013, the town introduced significant changes to the way the fire district would receive their funding. And past practice was that the town would, the Warrells Point Fire District would receive basically an operation fund, and we would receive the payments in quarterly payments. So this year, the first selectman introduced some changes, and they wanted us to bring all of our bills to the town hall for the town treasurer to pay them. That violates the special act concerning the Warrells Point Fire District. The fire district treasurer is responsible, and the board of commissioners is responsible for paying the district bills. So the Fire Department Incorporated, this is where that other entity comes in, fundraising money, paid for an attorney to actually fight the changes that the town wanted to make on receiving the funding, the annual funding. So the resolution was leave the funding as quarterly payments, as we did in the past, and work towards the Warrells Point Fire District being their own entity and levying a tax on the district. So we're working towards a solution. Several meetings were held between the first selectman and the fire district commissioners. It was decided with legal counsel that the Warrells Point Fire District is its own governmental agency and taxing authority, and that levying a tax was a solution for the infrastructure, maintenance, repairs, upgrades, and equipment purchasing for the fire district. So both parties agreed, we were all in agreement. It was actually agreed upon that the Broadbrook Fire Service would be taken out of the general budget. And so it would take the Broadbrook Fire Services out of the budget for the district residents. And this is might be hard to see, but this is a sample of the tax bill that they came up with.
Hey, Chief, Ray has a question.
Just for clarification, go back a slide. You said, how did we get there? And they said the change in Clinton Medic would have the town treasurer pay all the bills for the Warehouse Point Fire Department. Don't they do that today?
No.
No, so you pay all your own bills?
Yes.
So they're taking you right out of that? Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, they actually never paid any of our bills. We would get the funds, we would get the annual budget in 4 increments throughout the year.
What I think she might be confusing is that the town does, or the tax collector for the town does the tax collection for the district. And there's an MOU to that effect. That's not paying the bills,
tax
that's the
collector,
collection.
well, we pay the tax collector.
Yeah.
The district pays the tax collector to collect the taxes.
Right, but you guys are paying your actual
We
bills?
pay the fire.
Okay, I was not aware of that, so thanks for the
Yeah,
clarification.
the fire
on that.
commissioners
Okay.
pay the bills and the district treasurer. So right here, you know, this is what the town came up with. And these are 2 different tax bills from each side of town. And if you look in this column here, the town mill rate's the same, and the town mill rate's the same, but the fire service is different. The mill rate's 1.1 on the Warehouse Point Fire District side, and on the Broadbrook fire side, it's 0.76. So that was the plan we were going with. We'd say, all right, this is perfect. Nobody's getting double tax, nobody's paying, everybody's sharing. So on April 4th, we decided, that was our annual meeting, our budget meeting to decide the mill rate for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. That same day, we received notification of a legal opinion from the town council concerning the dissemination of the taxes, like I just showed you on that previous slide. And legal opinion stated that the town cannot lawfully reduce its tax bill for property owners within the Warehouse Point Fire District to offset town funding for Broadbrook Fire Services. So the fire district would continue with the budget vote because at that point, the fire district was removed out of the town general budget. So we didn't really have a choice but to continue with the path that we were going. So after we received that, the fire district immediately tried to return to the town budget to avoid the inequity of taxes on the people of the fire district. This is just cut out of the minutes. It was when we went to the Board of Finance meeting. Basically, they just talked about it, and we were trying to get back in the budget for $388,418. Motion failed. They were all opposed to it. So we were left out continuing with taxing the people of the fire district. Months of discussion. I put these, you guys have the actual minutes. I cut them out. They're actually somewhere in that packet. I put them. I think it's right after this slide. But the links are there if you wanted to click on them and go read them at your leisure.
Click on them here.
They're in there too. I put them in there. No, I can't click on that. You guys didn't want. So basically, this issue was talked about at a lot of these select board meetings. That's what I was trying to get across. And a lot of it was in public participation. It wasn't really on the agenda, but it was in public participation that people were aware that there was a problem. There wasn't an inequality. So July 19th, the East Windsor Fire Protection Committee was created to determine the best solution for the East Windsor residents. And that was made up of 9 people. I think it was 2 from each fire department, some town residents, some Board of Finance.
Selectman was on there, or Selectman on there.
Selectman member. And it was a pretty aggressive committee. They had meetings twice a month until late October when they came up with a decision. So the East Windsor Fire Protection Committee came up with a committee 8-1 to enlarge the fire district to encompass the whole town. And that was brought to the Board of Selectmen at the time. These are just more minutes. So when we brought that to the town, when we brought it to the Board of Selectmen to enlarge the fire district to include the whole town, the motion failed. It didn't even get a second. Dale Nelson made the motion, and it didn't even get a second, so the motion automatically failed. So at that point, the Board of Selectmen wasn't behind the committee that just worked that many months, twice a month. We came up with a solution to the issue.
Was that the time frame in which Broadbrook was holding their meetings to see if there was an interest in Broadbrook, or was that previous to that?
That was after.
No,
That's
we
after.
got ways to go before we
Okay.
get there.
Right, sorry.
This is great for me, this is all fresh for me.
This problem's been going on quite a while. This has been a long road. Oh, I must have clicked on the wrong thing. I had a different one up there. Well, we'll move into this. You guys have different slides on yours. I must have clicked on a different one on my thumb drive.
No, I think you're right. I think you're where you need to be.
All right.
No, so let's pause here. We'll let you walk through because I think there's some stuff you want to cover.
Yeah.
So you're on page 10 now?
I'm on page 10, yeah. So the chief, you're on, here, you want to use this?
Page 10? Good. Go past all of that.
December 2018 Fire Department Funding Subcommittee?
Yeah, I need to go over that.
Page 10, because that's all the narrative.
Okay, I got it. All right, so December of 2018, the Board of Selectmen decided to make a fire department funding subcommittee. It consists of 3 selectmen and the 2 fire chiefs. The 2 fire chiefs, the board of directors, it's an updated one, I'll get you the updated one. The board of directors from Broadbrook and 2 fire commissioners. So there was a couple meetings, and then they're on the links are on there, the minutes are on there. So a working group was formed, and the working group was made up of the 2 fire chiefs, 2 fire commissioners, and the Broadbrook Board of Directors. So our charge was basically to come up with a charter, if you will, for the expanded fire district and how everything was going to operate and who was going to do what the jobs were going to be, and the funding mechanisms and everything like that. So we worked pretty hard on it for several months, and the expansion charter was approved by everybody, the working group. So it went to our next step was to bring it to the membership of each department. So we brought it to the Warehouse Point membership, and everybody was in favor of it. And this is where I'll move the floor to Tommy. I don't really know about the bylaws, but I think basically what I put in that memo. According to the Broadbrook Fire Department bylaws, there has to be 2 consecutive meetings of a change in their bylaws, and it has to pass with 2/3 at each meeting.
Right.
So, fast forward, July was their membership meeting, and it passed. And August was their other membership meeting, and it failed at that one. So the working group got back together, and we basically came up with a final report we submitted to the Board of Selectmen. And that basically goes through without the full support of both fire departments to move forward with the district expansion, we believe that it will not receive the support from the townspeople that it needed to pass. So therefore, we come back to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and we're gonna have to figure out a way on how to fix this taxing issue.
Is there documentation as to why it didn't pass the second time around?
It was a vote of membership, they didn't pass. The membership itself voted against it.
Right. Do we know why? I mean, it's just in July it was okay, and then August it wasn't okay with some changes
It's a
made.
two-part vote. It might have been different changes with the members, I don't know.
Could have been different people voting, for all you know.
Right.
So as your
The thing goes-
association, I'm sorry, Chief, but your association is not a public organization, right? It's a private organization?
Right, that was your association had nothing to do with this.
Right.
I confuse that all the time. So the corporation is the one
Right.
that needs to vote on it.
Right.
And the corporation, are you public officials as part of the corporation? We just had a FOIA meeting earlier, so, to Marie's point about understanding what the reservations were, if there was any discussion, a public organization would have to disclose that, a private one would not.
I guess we are public, we have public funding.
So do you guys keep minutes of corporation
Right, yep.
events?
Mm-hmm.
Are those available somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Could we get copies?
Right now?
No.
No.
Yeah, we'll wait.
To move forward, it's important to know what the glitch is here. It could be one simple little thing that needs to be worked on, or it could be a magnitude of things that,
I think the biggest thing was.
Take years.
I think the whole thing was, it's a giant change for the Brevard Fire Department to do a district.
absolutely.
I think a lot of members felt that the department was going well the way it was, being funded by the town.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest of the whole thing, and plus changes, it was a big change. The district is used to running as a district, we're used to running as a private corporation, which 1943 became a private corporation. Bill, you can back me up on that one. And I guess the members were just happy with the way it was running. The town supported the town. If we back up 10 years ago, the town wasn't on board with us. They didn't, Jimmy, that's why Jimmy and that season over there, the town wasn't backing the fire departments, either side of town. Through the years, they got better, because all of our equipment is owned by the town of East Windsor. Jimmy's stuff is owned by the district, and the town didn't want to back Jimmy's bills because it wasn't town property. That's correct, Jim?
It wasn't a town building, so.
So then the town wasn't backing Jimmy, but they were still backing us. But we had parking lot improvements, building
Right,
improvements.
because your building was owned by the town.
Exactly.
Or yours was
Right.
owned by you, but your equipment, some of your trucks were under the town ownership, and some were under your own. Or they were always turned over to you after the town purchased them?
Ours are all owned by the town of East Windsor.
So I didn't realize they had all the titles to the vehicles.
Mr. Bowser, can I amplify that a little bit?
Sure.
What happened? Louis Flynn, I happen to be the chairman of the Board of Commissioners for the Fire District of Morales Point. Jimmy put this together, and he's absolutely right. What got left out is in your package here. There were several go-rounds with the town attorney. I know you were a selectman at that time, who proposed certain solutions to the problem. One was a district expansion. Another was put Warehouse Point back in the budget. They get what Broadbrook gets, which really isn't true. The Broadbrook gets a lot more in there that isn't in the budget. They get a free firehouse. They get all the maintenance of the firehouse. And if my friend the treasurer was here and went through her records, she would find that the town pays for their workers' comp and things like that. That doesn't appear in the $432,000 grant. Now, Warehouse Point gets zipped. We were told to come here, we came before the Board of Finance, and they decided it already out in the parking lot. And I'm not making this up. I swear on my mother's grave that was true. They were heard, if you got the motion, you got it all ready to go, and they came in and zapped it, because they wanted to put us back in. The problem here is very, very clear. Warehouse Point, if you happen to live there, you pay for the Warehouse Point Fire District to maintain a fire department, and you pay your share of the town taxes that go to the Broadbrook Fire Department. If you live in Broadbrook, you pay nothing to Warehouse Point, and you pay your regular tax. So it's about half for somebody in Broadbrook just on the town tax. Never mind the supplemental tax that we put a separate tax on people in Warehouse Point. And we've done a very good job. So you get a point. For many years, the Warehouse Point Fire District did a lot of stuff. They maintained the green, they had hydrants, they had sidewalks, they redid the sewers. But eventually the town took over those things because it just became untenable to do that. But they kept the fire department. What happened is, for many, many years, the district levied a tax. That was done for not 100 years, but 90 years. Somewhere back when John Daly and Jack Barnes and those people were in, they said, look, let's stop the taxing. We'll give you a stipend every year. Okay, so they did it. The problem became that we had more things to maintain than Broadbrook did. So we'd come out here and ask, roof on a building, pavement on a firehouse, something like that, a boiler in a firehouse. And we'd ask for it and get denied. So we go limping along to the next year. Now, just so you get a point, we've got a fire truck that is a first-line fire truck that is 30 years old. That's preposterous in this day and age. You can't go just get another fire truck. What they cost, it costs $1 million. The next problem is, so we said we don't have enough money. Tough. So we started to levy our own taxes several years ago. That's what we've done. And I'm very proud that we've kept it down as low as humanly possible, and we've provided much more service than we had before. And we attacked a lot of the problems that existed as to infrastructure, roofs, boilers, pavement, all this stuff, and equipment. And it's done. And the biggest part of it is through this money, we started with this fire maintainer thing, which is like part-time firemen that are there during the day, and now we've got them at night. And the town is a heck of a lot better off for us, because if they're getting 5 to 7 minutes to a scene, that beats a lot of places like Hartford. And the problem is, it's so inequitable that somebody's got to do something about it. Now, there are ways to do it, and they don't get popular. We did this thing all last winter, and I mean no disrespect to Mr. Arcari, or Chief Arcari. We sat around all winter having these meetings, and the theory was to expand the district and have 2 departments in the district. Well, we were set for it. They didn't want to do it. Okay. And that sort of nixes the deal. And where we are is we have to come up with a solution, because to go on the way it is now is grossly, grossly inequitable. It's not
not even close. And I might say there are some new faces here, and I hope they're listening, because there's some of the old faces, there were other reasons behind their feelings in this regard. I don't even want to get into past history. I'm looking forward as opposed to looking backwards. But I'm trying, as a member of that commission, to get some relief for the people in Wells Point. It would only be fair. Never mind the stuff that's buried in the budget. Never mind that the town gives them a firehouse. We're doing all that with our money. And we have to raise that money. And we've held it. We've held the amount. But we had to cut down capital improvements. But we got a lot of things done, and we did to hold the tax rate where it was before. But what we really need, I'll let Jimmy go back to these options, but we need some help. And this is not good to keep tramping along the way we're doing, because we're staggering along. And I personally feel ill-used by the finance board. It wasn't the Board of Selectmen so much. They came around the corner and agreed with us. And sent us to the Board of Finance, and it was zippity-doo-dah. That was it. Forget it. Yet, I don't understand why the Broadbrook thing just sails through. How can it be justified? It can't. Any rational thinking, oh, you can go tax for it. Yeah, you go tax and you get double tax people in Wells Point. Yeah, that's the solution they have. And if you thought, when we're out of the town budget, 400 and some odd thousand a year, you would say, oh, the town's saving $400,000 because they're not giving it to Wells Point. That didn't go in the piggy bank to be kept for rainy days. That was spent on something else. And it wasn't kept, and the town taxes went down because of it, for the tune of $400,000. That didn't happen. So I don't mean to filibuster. I just want you guys to understand. This is a very perplexing situation as it stands right now.
So,
I'd rather get back to the chair's presentation.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to fill in where we ended up currently.
then back to your presentation, where it fell apart in your negotiations with Broadbrook Fire Department and you. Is there any way with the minutes will reflect what actually happened? Because I think that's the important starting part for me, to understand what happened, when it happened, and why it happened, so that we can not rehash all of that, but take that from that point and move forward to try to find a resolve. I mean, I'm just speaking for me as a select person. So if we could get that.
I know this is not going to tell you much why it got rejected. I'm sorry? Our minutes is not going to tell you why it got rejected, it's going to say it was rejected. That's all it's going to say.
I mean, I would personally would like to know why in July it passed and then why in August it failed. I think that is important information, that if we could somehow obtain that, I think that would.
I don't think you're going to find it in minutes. Minutes are just going to say pass, fail. Just like a town meeting, pass, fails. There's nobody gets up and says why it didn't pass, why it did pass. So it's the same. But that doesn't mean the town can still, I mean, just because the fire department says no to the budget, I mean, to the district, they can still try to expand it.
And swallow you up?
They could try, you know, it's up to the townspeople. It's all up to the townspeople if they want to vote for it or not.
Yeah, but if we want to work together as.
We are working together. We work together every day.
No.
On the fire ground. Am I correct, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
Every day. We go to calls every day with each other. We work great.
That's fine. But now you want us to work with you to move forward to fix something. For me, to fix something, I have to know how it broke. And if I don't know how it broke and how, because at one point the negotiations were going well. And then there's a rumor mill, and I don't want to speak on the rumor mill because everybody has their own opinion of a rumor mill. But if I can get it from somebody's mouth as to what actually happened, there might be a solution that's minor, or it could be a solution that don't even waste your time looking at it because it's absolutely a no. No matter what you do, no matter what you try to change, it's going to be a no. I don't want to waste my time any more than you want to waste your time. So if we could get that, and if nobody agrees, that's fine, but for me, to move forward, I need to have the whole picture. else we're starting all over again. And that's just a waste of everybody's time, effort, and money that's already been expended for lawyers on both sides of the houses.
Well, I actually think we're gonna cover a little bit of that
All right.
as we go along.
All right.
Just to state something on, that wasn't, their meeting didn't break it. It's just, it didn't get the support of their membership. Maybe it lost by one vote, who knows?
Don't know.
But it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't need the blessing of the fire department.
Right.
Any of these options is,
It's up to the
we
townspeople.
need to get to the people of Broadbrook, have to vote on any of these solutions.
I
And that's
think-
where we're gonna get to.
And I'd like to get to the options to rectify the issue, because I think you have some good ideas there, but I think that our interest is to make sure that whatever solution is realized is as workable as possible for the Broadbrook Fire Department and the Warehouse Point Fire
Right.
District. I think
And that's why the slides have
Right.
the
There you go.
stuff on it, so. One would be to create a special services district for the East Windsor residents living outside the fire district. So that would, whoever brought us out of the Warehouse Point Fire District right now. 2 would be to expand the district, which we talked about, to encumber the whole town of East Windsor. 3 would be to enter into a negotiated agreement between the East Windsor and the Warehouse Point Fire District for contracted fire protection. And 4 would be to return funding to the town general budget for the Warehouse Point Fire District. And 5 would be to create a town of East Windsor Fire Department.
I think those are generally accepted as the 5 options that are in
Yeah,
there.
I don't think there's any other option besides those 5. So the Special Services District, the Board of Selectmen would introduce an ordinance creating the Special Services District. And within 60 days, it has to go to referendum, and the people living in the affected area would have to vote to come into the Special Services District. And that's in Chapter 105 of the General Statutes. So the Special Services District, some of the pros, the town of East Windsor can lawfully separate the funding for the Broadbrook Fire Department out of their town taxes, like those sample tax bills I showed you. This would allow them to do that. East Windsor residents would share the cost of fire service expenses through the whole town. It'll ensure the current funding for Broadbrook Fire Services is transferred to the Special Services District. So I'll expand on that a little bit. When we came out of when our 400,000 came out of the general town budget, the starting number for the town budget wasn't 400,000 less. So that 400,000, which was, and I know that was a concern of some members of the Broadbrook Fire Department, that was a concern of theirs because they saw what happened to us, and they're like, well, how are we going to guarantee that that money is taken out? And they're going to be just taxing for the district. So they didn't want to get another tax like we did. And that was a big concern, some of the members that I did talk to. The pros with this way, you have a chance of 0 loss for volunteers. You got to understand that the volunteer fire service is made up of a lot of pride, a lot of tradition. 2 things that firefighters hate is change and the way things are. So, but tradition is a big deal, and autonomy is a big deal with the fire service, especially the volunteer fire service. You know, people put their heart and soul into volunteering for the fire department. They're getting paid very little to do it. It just started that we're getting paid. When we started the incentive program, we were making $3 a call. So we're not here because we're making a fortune. So the cons of it, referendum cost to the town of East Windsor, Legal notice, costs and advertising. The mill rate would be different between Warehouse Point and Broadbrook side, basically because we operate 2 fire stations. They have one, we have different fire equipment that we have to maintain. So the mill rates would be a little different. Like basically on that sample bill that I showed you, it wouldn't be drastically different. The other option was to expand the current Warehouse Point Fire District. Basically, the Board of Fire Commissioners would vote to expand the district to encumber the whole town of East Windsor. A meeting would be scheduled for the affected area residents, and it would have to pass by 2/3 that they would want to vote to come into the fire district. The pros to that, the tax of the fire services will be equal to all town.
Sorry, Jim, 1 second. The 2/3 of everybody at the meeting or 2/3 of all the residents?
No, everybody has to be, quorum's 15. The mill rate is determined on the, that's something that's interesting. The mill rate would be determined on the entire grand list. If you look at the grand list right now, we're a little heavier in the Warehouse Point District, but it's pretty close. It's almost 50-50. So the cost of fire services, you know, right now we're doing 1.4 mil on half of the town. If you do 1.4 mils on the entire town, it actually might be, the mill rate actually might go down. It may go down to 1.2 or something like that, because you're taking into all the town property when you establish that mill rate. The incorporation the membership is not in favor right now of the expansion. Cost of legal notices, legal counsel to finalize the new district charter. So there's some legal costs. There's some legal costs there to have a lawyer just look it over and make sure it's okay. I think we pretty much did that because the district already talked to the district lawyer about it, so.
Still using Attorney Landolina?
Yeah. And this has a potential loss for volunteers. If some guys might say, no, I don't want to be part of the fire district. So that's what we have to watch out for too. We don't want to do anything that's going to end up losing volunteers. Contracted fire service, the town East Windsor and Warehouse Point would enter into a negotiated contract to provide fire protection for the town East Windsor. The East Windsor residents will be equally charged for the services. Zero loss of volunteers. Legal costs of negotiating the contract. Return the Warehouse Point Fire District to the general budget. We would have to get some kind of agreement. When we went into the general budget in 1974, 75, I think it was, there wasn't any agreement. Nothing was on paper. It was just a handshake in the back room. So there'd have to be a pretty substantial agreement, and that would have to cover taking care of the properties, taking care of the equipment, stuff like that. We would have to be considered for CIP expenses, you know, like we talked about earlier. A frontline truck that's 30 years old, that's going to have to be replaced. And that's when, you know, right now we're talking about our budget, annual budget's like $680,000. Rod Brooks is $465. So we're talking relatively small numbers right now. But when you start paying people and put more paid people on, and then you have to replace more equipment, like you said, fire truck's $1 million. So me as a resident, if I have to buy $1 million fire truck for Warehouse Point, and I have to buy $1 million truck for Broadbrook, that's where we're going to start having the issues. we're going to be talking about a lot more money. And that's going to be sooner or later. Some of this equipment is going to have to be replaced, and it's pretty near in the future rather than later. So all East Windsor residents will share the total cost of fire services for the town. That's a pro. And fire service will be subject to the entire, fire service would be subject to entire budget cuts. Equipment and infrastructure could be neglected because of budget deficits, because of other town agencies. Warehouse point would be held and restrained to that 2% unless we get that changed. And establish an East Windsor Fire Department. The Warehouse Point Incorporated and Broadbrook Incorporated would have to agree to provide fire protection for the town of East Windsor and be funded by them. There would have to be probably an agreement or a lease or something for the buildings and the equipment. So the pros to that, tax for the fire service would be equal to all town and East Windsor taxpayers. Legal counsel cost, potential loss of volunteers, it could be pretty high. Cost of a full-time fire department due to loss of volunteers. Full-time fire service cost salary is approximately $4 million annually. And I got that number from Hazardville Fire Department. They basically run 4 guys on an engine 24 hours a day. So we had to do that twice. Their budget right now is $1.8 million just for salaries. That doesn't include anything else. That's just salary. That's not their operating budget or anything else. So roughly, it's going to be about $4 million. And it's going to be tough to find $4 million. So just to let you guys know that the fire district and the firefighters are committed to working with Town East Windsor to rectify this situation. We own it. We owe it to the taxpayers to equal the cost of fire protection throughout the whole town, because it really is the obligation of all the town taxpayers to fund fire service. Anybody got any questions?
So, I just want to tell you, first and foremost, you did an outstanding job of laying the issues out here. I mean, this was the best presentation I've seen on this to date, and I think I've seen all of them. You did a very, very good job.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Do any selectmen have any questions, comments?
I want to thank Chief Barton for putting this out. It obviously took a lot of time, and he's put a lot of effort into this, which I appreciate. But Chief Arcari, do you have any input on anything or anything that you'd like to add?
That was where I was going next after we had our bite of the apple.
Got it, okay.
My personal opinion, I think the service district is the best way to go. The service district. That was the first of the options explained.
Creating a special service district?
Yes. I don't know much about them. Jim's told me a little bit about them. I'd like to get some more information on them. I don't know how much, how it works as opposed to a district, or if it's, who sets the mill rate. I know that the money goes back to the town. Does the town pay the bill? I don't know.
It's an overlay government, basically.
Is it like the sewer commission, sewer district?
No. So if you think of as an example, the one that I'm familiar with is the city of Bridgeport. In downtown Bridgeport has what's called the Downtown Special Services District. And they have additional costs that are required for just that small neighborhood. And they have an overlay government that has same governance authorities as any political subdivision. And they can provide those services within the corporate limits of that special service district. So it works effectively like a second district.
So there's a board of commissioners for that?
There's a statute that outlines the formation and the governance of it. I haven't read it, so I'd rather not throw that out there. I'm sure it does, but I couldn't quote a chapter and verse what it does.
So just for clarification, Jason, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So that special service district would allow both Warehouse Point and Broadbrook be autonomous from each other, but their finances would be combined.
No.
You wouldn't
No,
even combine your finances.
In that model, so think of the Warehouse Point Fire District as effectively a special service district, or alternatively, think of the special service district as effectively another fire district. They have their governance, they have their powers, they have their budget, they have their equipment. We would be creating that same model for residents who are not currently in the Warehouse Point Fire District.
Right, we would do that for Broadbrook.
Right. And I believe we need to do that if that's the preferred.
You
route.
guys, I think you guys.
We would have to do
You
that.
pay the bills too, I believe, right? The money comes to the town?
That would be an arrangement that would have to be negotiated by like an
I
MOA.
think they can do that. I think in Manchester, see, when I was doing the research, Manchester has 2 fire districts. What the South Fire District, and they have North, 8th Utilities. 8th Utilities basically operates like we do. They have their own board of commissioners. They get their money from the taxpayers just in the 8th district. But they pay the same amount as everybody in Manchester. So South District actually gave up their commission, and they're underneath the board of selectmen, or they have a board of directors.
Board of directors.
They don't have, they have a town manager, and they also have a special services district for businesses, like a business zone, they have to take a different tax rate and.
Yeah, the downtown district.
Yeah, so there's another use of a special services district right there.
Because I used to work for utility. The 8th District Utility in Manchester also does water and sewer, as well as the fire department,
Yeah.
which you would not.
Right.
If the town were to develop a special services district, we would have to do the due diligence to understand what that means. But my understanding is it's effectively a separate government, just like a fire district would be. And any services that would be provided on behalf of the special service district by the town would have to be negotiated and memorialized.
Right, contract and agreements made.
Right.
Which I think could be done by the next budget cycle. We'd have to get, you know.
Certainly that could be done within the fiscal, or by the start of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
May I add one thing? What it does, that approach is probably the preferable approach because it does away with the loss of autonomy. You know what I mean? And each one keeps their own autonomy, and that's probably a good thing.
Well, we're actually not the first ones going through this. Like Barkhamsted has 3 separate fire districts combined into one actual district, but there's still 3 separate departments. And Amy could talk about that because she's the treasurer for Barkhamsted Fire District. And we went and met with them, and we had meetings with them to see how it was going to work, and that's how we basically came out with our new charter.
So our biggest testing would to see what financial cost it would be in order for us to do that.
He laid it out. I mean, it's not onerous on the town. It would be legal cost noticing a meeting. I mean, it's just like having a town meeting on another issue.
And the referendum cost.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking not a lot of money.
Right, I mean, it's not,
And then with that-
it would be under probably 8,000.
Well, legal costs will jack it up a bit, but it's not, you're not out of the ballpark.
Right.
So then at what point, if we do that service district, just because I'm stupid sometimes, how does that get your building under the town budget for? It doesn't.
We're still separate from the town of East.
You're separate from the town of East Windsor.
Basically, the only thing the special service district is going
Would
to do
tax
for
them
us.
directly from,
Right.
they would tax us directly for their expenses as your,
Right, it's going to be
got
able
it.
to
Okay,
break-
that's all I needed. I got
It's going
it.
to break their expenses out
Yep.
of the general budget.
Right, into their,
Into theirs, just like
Got it.
ours is separate in our budget.
got it.
I mean, if, there's still gonna be, like, the building, how's the building gonna work, you know, is it gonna be taxed under us, is it gonna be, you guys gonna continue with
Again,
it?
that would be a negotiated
Right, Same thing with
arrangement.
the trucks, the maintenance of the building, all that stuff.
Yep, that would be a negotiation, you know, same as any other business arrangement.
Which I think, reading the statute, I believe that, you know, you guys can just stay the way you are right now. Your board of directors can make up the budget, come up to here, and you can still negotiate to have them pay your bills or whatever you want to do. Because I don't think, in Manchester, they don't. The town takes care, they don't have a separate treasurer for the South Fire District. And the town handles all that. 8th District does have a separate, they have everything. I think they have tax collector and, but they have the water and sewers, all good. The fire district in where I was going actually gave, I don't remember what year, but we actually gave, the sewers was ours, and we actually gave them to town East Windsor. I don't remember when.
Want them back? They're in great shape.
Yeah, street lights and sidewalks, and that was all of our
Trees?
that's how it all started. I included the special act in the second email I sent you guys this afternoon. And that'll tell you how it was, you know, it's very specific though. Like the boundary lines are a rock next to Johnson's house off the, yeah.
The tree gets split in the road at walls.
So it's tobacco shit.
I don't look at my emails this afternoon, so if I go on the town email, there's a correspondence
Yep,
from you.
there should be.
Okay, I'll look at that this evening.
About 4 o'clock, right?
Yeah, you'll only have one.
Okay.
I forgot to put the CT on the first one.
I think it's important to point out that, you know, unlike what some of our predecessors used to scare the public with, is that, you know, once you get one of these districts, they're out of control. You can't control them, and that's not true. You know, I know they're having issues in Enfield, but at Warehouse Point, we hold a public meeting for our budget every single year, and the town's tax people are welcome to come and vote in favor or to turn that budget down. Now, granted, often nobody does come and vote up to oppose it, but if properly noticed and made public awareness to the townspeople, they are more than welcome to come to, you know, the Warehouse Point Fire District's annual meeting and vote on the budget. And I'm sure the same would be true for a special service district. You would have voting rights as Rockbrook citizens, and you would be able to voice your opinion, yay or nay, on their budget. It's not a free-for-all. So I think that's one misconception that some people have, that, you know, once they become a district, you can't stop them. They're going to buy 100 fire trucks and build Taj Mahal fire stations. And we don't do that.
You actually have more control over a smaller district like that the people do, if they want to come out and vote. You know, they have more control, you know, of that part of the town's budget, you know, fire service, as opposed to the whole budget.
Alan, you've been quiet.
I guess all I gotta say at this point in time is it seems to me that pretty much we're all kind of rowing in the same direction, which is a good start. And I agree that, I think, you know, option 1 or 2 is a way to go long-term. It's cheaper long-term for people, and I think it provides the transparency. The other things, there's tripwires and kind of contracts and all that stuff. It's just, it's not gonna work long-term. So, but saying all that, I think that the problem that, or the challenge that we have, it's not a problem, the challenge that we have is to make sure that we can educate really everybody in the town to come out and understand what we're actually doing and you know, head off any misinformation, that kind of stuff, really getting the word out that, you know, this is not something scary, it's gonna, you know, fundamentally change the amount of money you're paying. Really, it's not gonna change it. So, you know, I think it's good, I think we should keep going.
So would the board be comfortable with me asking for a little bit of legal due diligence on that option?
I would recommend it.
Yes, I think it should
I would
be.
recommend it.
Okay, and with our, hopefully, changing our meeting date to January 9th, I think that would be sufficient time to get council.
I would like to try to resolve this so we can get anything done for the budget cycle.
Oh, yeah, that'd be ideal.
That was gonna be my next question, is that even possible? And what's the fallback? You know, we have to come up with a what if, what are we gonna do otherwise? That's going to be, I don't know, agreeable by, with where I was going too, like.
Right. Well, what is the?
We don't have to agree on any of that.
Right.
Special services, that's.
No, I think he's being,
No,
if we're not able to pull the trigger on that, or if it proves not to be a viable solution, what do we do then? But that still leaves 4 other choices, you know, and if we wait till the January 9th meeting, that's not prohibitively far in the budget process for us not to have all 4 of the other options on the table.
Yeah, I guess we would have to think about advancing one of them as a backup.
I would say the contract for services would be my second option.
Well,
Just
before we
Yeah.
assign any, you know, rating scale here, let's figure out if option 1 is a viable thing, and then we can hash out what comes next.
Option 1 again.
Option 1 is the, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for some research on a special service district, steps that we would need to take, and potential implications that the town may incur.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need that in form of a motion?
I don't think so, I can just talk to Josh, but.
Okay.
Jason, could you send me some information on that as you,
As I get it, I'll share it with both, I suppose, with Chief Arcari and Chairman Flynn. Is that the proper chain with your organization? Or can I go through you? I don't care. Who wants it? You?
He can get it, he'll show you.
Okay. All right, so I'll reach out and ask for that ball to get rolling tomorrow. Good? This was, you did really an excellent job. Really
I'm good if you're good.
Thank you for your time and your diligence, sir.
All right, thank you.
Good. Thanks. Next, so we have 2 active negotiations right now. First being the police union we talked about. The second one is dispatchers. And as we look to kind of make some progress on resolving both of those open issues, I need a team member. So Alan is serving with me on the police union. Is there anyone else who would be interested in doing dispatchers? They are asking, I believe. Anthony Bedlam is their attorney. Yeah. Are you conflicted out?
Well, just to be transparent, I sat on the council for executive board for a number of years. And I don't know if anybody's going to perceive that as a conflict of interest. On the other hand, being involved in council for negotiations and arbitrations and mediations for probably 20 out of my 22 years of corrections, I have a background in negotiations. So I'd be willing to sit, provided there's not a perceived notion that there's a conflict of interest.
The conflict, as long as you disclose the conflict, that's all anyone is required to do.
No, I'm disclosing the conflict. Not unless somebody else.
We'll get you on one. Don't worry, there's plenty coming.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. But I don't have a problem if you want to take it either. I'm not here to, you know.
You see him raising his hand?
No, I didn't.
Sarah was going to raise her hand.
So a motion would be in order then?
I'll move to add Marie D'Souza as our appointment of on the dispatcher negotiating team.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you for stepping forward.
And thank you guys for your support. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot.
Next item is 10B. We did 10A. 10B is discuss and approve an emergency closing policy. Okay, so here is why this is before us. We talked about this previously. This is just to memorialize things so that everything is as crystal clear as can be. It has been reviewed. It's ready for implementation if we ratify it. Are there any questions or concerns on it? We'll start with questions. Any questions on it?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is very enumerated.
I'll move to approve the emergency, sorry, I mean to interrupt. Emergency closing policy as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Sarah, seconded by Alan to accept the policy as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So just as there's a lot of work to do in terms of freshening up ordinances and policies. So as you have ideas about some of those, let me know and I can do some homework on it and have something for folks to start thinking about. There is lots to do in that space. So this is the first, it will not be the last. I'm hoping to have another one, another concept for consideration certainly in January. I'm not sure yet if it'll be a policy or an ordinance, but it's going to be one of those. Because I do have a list. So. Next. Okay. The Town Hall Annex is probably never going to be a useful school again. But there has been interest expressed by the Historical Society for the blackboards that are in there to be donated to the Barber Hill School on the Historical Society complex. Right. Yeah, and that's a crazy tour. If anyone is interested, Joe Sauerhofer took me through the old school, and it was like walking into the past. It was pretty neat. Yeah, you probably went there, huh?
I did.
Yeah. You're old, man.
I am.
Just walked you through that past. How's it feel?
I thought I saw your name carved into a desk, actually.
Yeah.
So at any rate, before I just said yes, you can go ahead and take the blackboards out of the old school and take it down to the Historical Society. I thought it best to ask you guys because it is town property and I didn't just want to be giving it away to a nonprofit without you at least being aware of it and raising any objections you might have if you have them.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so with that, actually I would ask for a vote on that just to cover myself.
I would make a motion that we authorize the donation of the surplus blackboards to the Historical Society from the old, what was that school called?
Grammar school.
Old grammar school.
It's the Warehouse Point School is what it was called.
Warehouse Point Grammar School.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this next one, there is a, oops, I jumped myself. This is a pro forma policy that basically affirms that the town is not in favor of any type of discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability, and this ties into the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is a pro forma resolution that we pass annually. And we have a fair amount of grant money tied to having this policy in place, or at least the opportunity for grant money based on having this policy in place. So I'm going to ask for a motion, but first I'll read it for the benefit of the public. The town of East Windsor is committed to ensuring that no person is excluded from participation, denied benefits, or otherwise subjected to discrimination under any program or activity on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. The town of East Windsor, as a recipient and subrecipient of federal financial assistance, will ensure full compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as amended, and related statutes and regulations in all the town's programs and activities. Any person who believes that he or she has been subjected to discrimination or retaliation based on their race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability may file a Title VI complaint. Complaints may be filed directly to the town or to the federal funding agency. Complaints must be filed in writing and signed by the complainant or a representative and should include the complainant's name, address, and telephone number, or other means by which the complainant can be contacted. Complaints must be filed within 180 days of the date of the alleged discriminatory act. To request additional information on the town of East Windsor's non-discrimination obligations or to file a Title VI complaint, please submit your request or complaint in writing to the Human Resources Director, Town of East Windsor, 11 Rye Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut 06016. Complaint forms can be obtained online at the town's website, www.eastwindsor-ct.gov. That's the resolution. Or policy statement, rather. So a vote is necessary to affirm the policy statement.
I'll move to approve the resolution pertaining to East Windsor's Title VI policy.
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions?
Do we need to authorize me to sign that?
I mean, you can. I'm pretty sure I have signing authority for most things that have been voted on, but if you want to, you can.
Could we just amend it to give my authorization to sign it?
Yep, I'll amend my motion and I'll add the authorization for the first selectman's signature.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so carried. Now, this is the thing I thought we were doing. So the Connecticut general statutes allow for the, or set the hours of referenda, which we will certainly have in 2020. They set the hours from 12 to 8, but they allow for municipalities to extend them to be 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. instead of 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is another one of those pro forma motions. We can do this, we don't have to do this now. We can do this when the first one pops up. We can do this on a case-by-case basis. But really, why would we not want to make voting as available for people as possible? I would ask for the highlighted resolution, or the highlighted section to be offered as a motion.
Make a motion that we, pursuant to the Connecticut's General Statute 7-9B, that the hours for referenda held by the town of East Windsor in the calendar year 2020 be held from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Charlie? Approval of tax refunds.
I'll move to approve the tax refunds totaling $1,577.83.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? So carried. Okay. Selectmen's reports.
Oh, do we need to do 10G?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Add an agenda?
So I'd just like a motion to cancel our January 2nd and January 16th meeting and schedule special meetings for January 9th and 23rd.
We'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys for that accommodation. Okay, it's a two-pager. On Friday, December 6th, I was pleased to join the Warehouse Point Fire Department at their annual dinner. They recognized members who went above and beyond the call over the last year. Of particular note this year was that David Zelaya. David Zelaya was trained in proper procedures to honor a fallen firefighter. His training was on full display when Tony D passed away in September, and David's training allowed for a very fine ceremony in his honor. On December 9th, I met with the Community Relations Liaison for Eversource assigned to our town. He explained their emergency response process, their preventative work that they do over the course of the year in terms of tree maintenance, and how that is determined, and noted the availability of micro grants from Eversource for nonprofits in the community. If there's a nonprofit project happening that could use a little help getting over the goal line, Eversource has funding that's available in grant amounts of up to $1,000 per project, and they asked that applicants or interested parties go through my office to request those. I had no idea that those were available, but they actually have a statutory obligation to provide certain levels of assistance to community nonprofits, and they have not had a pathway to do that in East Windsor. So I'm interested in helping them get as much free money into town as we can. That same day, I met with the superintendent of Connecticut Water, Paul Lowry. Moving forward, I've asked Len Norton to coordinate with Paul on road improvement projects to make sure that when we're doing road repairs, we're not repairing roads that then ultimately are going to get dug up by Connecticut Water as they do their own infrastructure repair process. They also have, in communities that they do business, have helped cover the cost of some of those road repairs when there's a hole dug, they replace their infrastructure, and the town comes back over and tops it off. They actually will cover some of the cost of that, so that's certainly a line of communication that we're maintaining. On December 10th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting. They were focused on planning for 2020 and have some exciting projects underway. I also asked them to provide me a list of 5 or 6 businesses that would make some sense for me to visit over the next few weeks as part of an effort to engage and be a part of East Windsor's business community, and to make sure that I'm aware of the business community's perspective on what the town can be doing to make things run a little bit better. That same morning, I attended my first coffee with the first selectman that was held at the Senior Center. Deputy First Selectman D'Souza joined me for that warm conversation, and I was glad to continue this tradition, as I think it provides a good conversation and a good dialogue point for that constituency with town government. And to round out the day on the 10th, Joe Sauerhofer gave me kind of a behind-the-scenes tour of each town facility so that I could have a better sense of where our assets are, what the condition of those assets may be, and what we need to do to keep just our basic services functioning. It was actually really enlightening. And that included a tour of the old school in Warehouse Point where Charlie went. On December 11th, a prospective vendor to replace View Permit came and gave a presentation. View Permit is currently the town's permitting software. It's sunsetting, or at least its support is sunsetting as of June 30. So we're looking to see what a successor program for that may look like. The hope is that the new software will replace the existing software with a new, more kind of user-friendly approach, so that when a permittee has a permit pending, rather than having to go office by office and trying to figure out, like, have you approved my permit yet? Have you approved my permit yet? All they need to do is log in with their credentials and be able to say, okay, the fire marshal has signed off on it and the building official has signed off on it, but we're waiting on engineering and we're waiting on the site plan approval. So it becomes a more user-friendly approach for users to be able to say, I know where the logjam is, or I know where I need to go to do some additional due diligence. Let me not waste time looking for the lost place to go. Whatever software we bring on, whether it's the vendor that made their pitch to us or some other one, I'm hoping has that type of an interface so that users are able to see how we can make things go better and faster. On December 12th, I met with the legislative delegation for the town and had a wide-ranging conversation on issues that affect East Windsor, from available grant funding to transportation improvements to economic development opportunities, and ways that the delegation can help to advance these issues on behalf of the town. On December 13th, I stopped by the Housing Authority's annual holiday party and wished the residents and staff a happy holiday on behalf of the town. And on the 14th, the East Windsor Veterans Commission participated in the hosted the Wreaths Across America ceremony. 1,600 communities across America participate in that service annually to remember fallen soldiers, honor those who have served, and to teach our children the value of freedom. Later that same night, I was pleased to attend the Broadbrook Fire Department's annual banquet. Of particular note there were the Years of Service Awards. Special thanks and congratulations to former Chief Cal Myers, who was recognized for 50 years of service to that department, and to Chief Tom Arcari, who was recognized for 40 years of service. On December 16th, CROG and Trans Systems gave me a preview of their initial work on the Route 5 corridor study, which seeks to provide recommendations for future economic development opportunities along the Route 5 corridor. and just as importantly, make recommendations for congestion modifications along Route 5. A public hearing and workshop had been scheduled for Tuesday of this week, but had to be postponed because of weather, and will be rescheduled for sometime just after the new year. One of the recommended improvements that that study is going to say is necessary is to install traffic cameras at key intersections on town roads along Route 5. Installation of cameras would allow for better synchronization of traffic lights, which should allow traffic to flow more smoothly and to reduce the likelihood of bottlenecks and undue delay. I am extremely pleased to share that the town is ready to act on that recommendation. DPW Director Len Norton has reached out to ConDOT District 1, and they have analyzed the Route 5 corridor and identified a need for 8 cameras, which would be purchased by the town at a cost of $25,000. The funding for that is already budgeted in our road improvements, so we're ready to do that without having to ask for any additional money beyond what's in our budget. And if the town purchases those 8 cameras, DOT will kick in the cost of materials to upgrade those intersections, equipment, and labor. That's leveraging town dollars by at least a 4-to-1 margin, if not an 8-to-1 margin. That is a huge win for us, and we're very grateful for DOT for their help with the project. Installation is likely to happen sometime in the spring, and I have to give Len Norton a lot of credit for, as soon as the ask was made of him, he got right on the horn with his contacts at DOT and got a very generous commitment very quickly, so very appreciative of that. On December 17th, representatives of CCM came in to provide me an update on the services that CCM provides. They do things like opportunities for grants, research services, legislative advocacy, training and workshops for officials and staff, energy efficiency programs, risk management. It's like they are a tremendous resource that we need to be taking more advantage of. Many of the trainings that they offer are open to member communities, but they're far away. So I also offered to host one here, whether it be at the town hall or at Scout Hall or Town Hall Annex, so that people in our community can have access to that training, and it also doesn't become so onerous for us to have to travel down to Monroe all the time, which seems to be where a lot of them are offered. Yesterday, I attended my first Council of Regional Governments meeting. A key piece of the meeting involved the establishment of legislative priorities that CROG would like to see passed in the next session, which starts in February. Of particular interest to the town of East Windsor may be a measure to support testing and remediation expansion for crumbling foundations, improvements to special education funding as it pertains to municipal budgets, and increased availability for environmental sustainability initiatives. Those are all things that ultimately would benefit the community, and having an organization like CROG pushing behind that is helpful. I'm going to be very involved with that, as a lot of grant funding opportunities flow through CROG. And lastly, today I was very pleased to join the East Windsor Middle School Chorus Program and members of our Senior Center for a breakfast program where the chorus kids sang Christmas songs to the seniors while they shared breakfast together. It was a great connection between our schools and our seniors, and everyone really did have a very great time celebrating the spirit of the season. This afternoon was also a special day at the Senior Center. After 18 years of service as a nutritionist, Janet Vining is retiring to spend more time with her new granddaughter. And there were more than a few teary eyes as the Senior Center thanked Janet for her years of service. On behalf of the town, I presented her with a proclamation thanking her for her dedication to the community and certainly wishing her the very best in her next chapter. That's all I've been up to over the last 2 weeks. So, with that, great.
December 10, 2019, the Planning and Zoning meeting was removed from my calendar due to meeting conflicts. Selectman Alan Baker will therefore address that meeting information with you. He was kind enough to accept that liaison position. On December 12th, I met with Lodestar regarding their Connecticut Solar Net marketing program at East Windsor Town Hall with the first Selectman Jason Bowser, Len Norton, and Jerry Sauerhofer. It was an informational meeting. The Historical Preservation Committee did not meet. No, the Historical Preservation Committee did meet, but I was unaware of it since I didn't see any agenda posted. I found it on the town of East Windsor notification through Facebook hours after it started. So Saturday morning, I'll be meeting down at the Historical Society to see if I can get on their agenda, so this way I know when they meet. But I did see online that they're actively pursuing information regarding the previous named state receiving home on 140 in Warehouse Point. This will allow them to preserve the memories of those connected to the home. And then today I read that Bob Welch, who worked at the state receiving home for probably 30 years, and previous director, I believe he's a previous director, and a few others went out to the cemetery to get the historical background that they were aware of. We'll see where that goes. On December 14th, I also attended the Wreath Across America ceremony held in Windsor, where due to the inclement weather, the ceremony itself was moved inside the church for health reasons. On December 16th, I attended the Economic Development Commission meeting. The website is coming along quite nicely. Discussion took place regarding Connecticut Economic Resource Center and a program they offer to help communities to market commercial space. 2019 town profile was handed out, which has a wealth of information. I'm sure it'll be posted in the papers as it normally does. I arrived late to the East Windsor Housing Authority meeting the same night, but made it just in time to hear the motion made to replace the community room roof. As you recall, last month I reported that out of the $650,000 small city grant money, the state wouldn't allow that money to be used for a roof, so they took the initiative to use residents' dollars out of the bank to fund that project. The Resident Program Fund application was submitted to CHFA for review. That request, if approved, would allow for 3 gazebos to be put up, 6 picnic tables, and 6 park benches to be purchased. And I was glad to hear on January 14, 2019, the Executive Director, Linda Cullen, will be attending the annual Emergency Management Team meeting, which will be held by Chief DeMarco, since sheltering in place as a concern for residents of Park Hill. December 17th, as Jason said, the Group 5 study was canceled, being rescheduled in 2020, and thank you for that update that you have, because that's very important. December 18th, the Broadbrook Mill Site Remediation Committee meeting was canceled, so therefore I was able to attend the special meeting and the regular meeting of the Board of Finance, which I'll let whoever is the liaison, I believe that's you, report on that. On December 19th, today, I attended the Freedom of Information Workshop at Town Hall. And as a side note, I'd like to wish our community the best to come over the next 12 days of 2019. However you decide to close out the year, I wish you nothing but health, happiness, and the ability to reach out to anyone less fortunate than you. Together, we can all make a difference. Respectfully submitted, Ray. And if you hand that down, I promise I'd give you a written copy.
All right, this will be fairly quick. We didn't have a lot of meetings since the last Board of Selectmen meeting. The Planning and Zoning, they finished up their renewal of the permit for 140 Wapping Road for WSG LLC. They added a couple conditions to that permit to kind of take care of some potential issues that they were seeing over the last year. So they added activity reports that needed to be added quarterly, showing the amount of trucks that are in or out to make sure that they're adhering to their permitted allowable truck trips per day. Also, they need to submit annually a georeferenced aerial photo. They also started a public hearing on the renewal for the permit at what we know as Charbonneau's Pit, which is Apothecaries Hall Enterprises LLC. There was a lot of talk about dirt tracking on the road, and the applicant spoke at length about the measures they take to mitigate the problem and their desire to be a good neighbor. There was a lot of public input there, and so that was continued. They're also discussing adding the activity reports and the annual aerial photos, and they'll talk about that at the public hearing in their next meeting. Beautification Committee, it started out with John Majumpa from the Rotary, who invited the committee to maybe get involved in a mutual project between the Beautification Committee and the Rotary. Past projects that the Rotary has done is the gazebo near the pond, the gazebo at Park Hill, lights at the reservoir, etc. They're hoping to get some new members. They have meetings Thursday nights at 6:30 p.m. And they would like to work on a boundless playground at a location to be decided, maybe at Reservoir Park. The committee is moving their meetings to accommodate Selectman Nordell to be their liaison.
High demand.
So it looks like it's going to be fourth Wednesday, Osborne House, 115 Scannick Road, but they got to figure all that out and get the commitments. They're working on their Keep America Beautiful affiliation, and that training is scheduled for the group and for the public on 1/26/2020. They're also working out the details of their Facebook and general media presence. So they're generally getting themselves organized, trying to figure out what they're going to be doing for 2020. On 12/18, which is last night, I attended the Board of Finance meeting to see what they were going to do about the splash pad appropriation we discussed at our last meeting, and also to get yelled at by Geraldine for all the things I've done wrong since I left the Board of Finance.
Just in the last 2 weeks, really.
Yeah. So, the pension board did not meet this month, so that's it. Happy holidays, everybody. Oh wait, sorry. Back in October, just before the election, Charlie and I, actually, by chance, were both at the Scannick River Educational Forum that was presented by the American Heritage River Commission and the Sierra Club of Connecticut, and it was hosted at the Warehouse Point Library. There was a lot of discussion about the ongoing water quality testing that the American Heritage River Commission does. And then they went in depth into water quality in general with that testing. What's notable, I guess, at all that was East Windsor has the highest amount of red level days, which is defined by more than 575 CFUs per 100 milliliters of E. coli in a sample, so not good. E. coli is not the only thing, that's just like an indicator. When you have that much stuff, you're pretty sure you have a lot of other stuff in the water, so that's in the Scannick River. Also consistently high in nitrogen and phosphorus, which you kind of expected at time. This spring, the Stream Walk is happening again, which is a survey by volunteers of the entire length of the Scannick River from its headwaters in Massachusetts all the way to the Connecticut River. Teams walk, paddle, or tube their section, measuring water temps, depth, and noting any discharges into the river that they might find. A report is produced, and that is kept, and it helps keep track of trends in water quality. I did it last time. I think it's done every 10 years. Could be. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and you get a lot of good information that helps if they're going for grants for anything. You know, that stuff goes, you know, in their favor during the grant writing process. So now I'm done. Sorry, thanks. And I said it.
Mr. Nordell.
Okay, so this is repeat because you guys have all said it, and we all were at a lot of the same events, but at any rate. Friday, December 6th, I attended the Warehouse Point Fire Department annual dinner where they honored several volunteers for various awards. I'd like to give a big shout out to all our volunteers in town for their hours of dedication and service on both fire departments and boards and commissions. They all do a great job. On Tuesday, December 10th, I attended the Broadbrook Fire Commission meeting where they discussed bonding for a new fire truck. They did some discussion about the layout of the new kitchen in the senior center, and also talked about organizing their torchlight parade, which is being held on 12/21. On Wednesday, December 11th, I attended the East Windsor Police Commission meeting, where they elected Bob Leach as their chair, Darren Long as their secretary. The chief of police reported that the budget was due to be submitted to the town, and the fact that they would likely be asking for more than a 2% increase, because 2% is not going to meet their new contractual obligations along with training. He also reported that the new movable speed sign has been a great success in town, and has been in high demand by lots of residents wanting it put on their street. It has been very helpful in reducing speeds on town roads. That sign gives them a lot of data and reporting when they take it down as to high speed, average speed, and all kinds of...
Probably traffic numbers too.
And traffic numbers too. So it's been very helpful, and they're hopefully maybe looking at getting more grants to get more of those. So on that same night, I also attended the Board of Education meeting in substitute for Sarah, who had another obligation. I got there just in time to learn that Brockbrook Elementary School has been working on evaluating its literacy program and how it can be improved. The school budget, but unfortunately I heard last night that this is not true anymore, was currently on track for ending the year in the black. The food service budget is being critiqued monthly now and handled as a separate in-house business to better track revenue versus expenses. They're also taking a lot of other measures to keep a close eye on that budget. Energy efficiency projects for them have been looked at for the school, and will be decided if the project savings are worth upfront expenses. High school students visited the Brockbrook Elementary School and the middle schools to help with art projects and to read stories to the younger kids. This is an ongoing coalition that they've been having going on, and it happens I think once a month, where they send a certain number of students to each school and help them with projects and reading and various things. And the younger kids really love it, because when my kids come home, they're like, oh, the older kids came today, and they're really excited about it. So it's a good program. They had their winter concert on 12/13, and the high school had its concert on December 5th. Most significant to note from the Board of Ed meeting was that they saw 99 new students in town since the beginning of the year, and that did not count kindergarten or pre-K registration. The highest increases were saw in grades 3 and 5, which with, I think, 11 each. But 99 new students in just the first 3 months. So when they tell you they have a lot of ins and outs, they really do. On Saturday, December 14th, I attended Wreaths Across America, like most of us did, at the Windsorville Church. And next goes on to upcoming events. The Brockbrook Library is hosting Make a Snowman Ornament for kids, going from now until Christmas. On Saturday, 12/21, at 1 o'clock, the Warehouse Point Library will be showing the movie The Polar Express for anybody that wants to watch. On Saturday, December 21st, also, at 9 to 12, you can have coffee with a cop. This is a chance for people to voice concerns with the department, and they will also be collecting hats and gloves for social services in town. Also on the 21st is the annual Torchlight Parade and Carol Sing, which will begin at 5:30 on Main Street in town, or in Brockbrook, this side of town. After the parade, there will be hay rides, tattoos, refreshments, and arts and craft activities. So you can finally get that Tweety Bird tattoo you've been wanting. And Parks and Recs will be taking non-perishable food donations to supply Five Corner Cupboard and the East Windsor Power Pack program during that event. And then on Wednesday, like Tom Talamini earlier mentioned, January 1st, they will be holding their 10th annual New Year's Day hike, which starts at the Brockbrook end of Melrose Road. And they also will be collecting non-perishable food and pet donations. And the Connecticut Trolley Museum is still running the Tunnel of Lights until the weekend of the 29th. And I wish everyone a happy and safe holiday.
Sarah.
Saturday, December 7th, I attended a craft and vendor fair held at Scout Hall that was organized by East Windsor High School student Nicole Grazowiski as a Save Graduation fundraiser. Funds raised were to benefit returning graduation back to Meneely's, since it was cut from the budget for this class of 2020. I'd really like to commend her on coordinating this event, as she raised approximately $1,000 just between raffle and the bake sale. Additional fundraisers are in the works to benefit this, and it's great to see students taking the initiative for things that are important to them. On Sunday, December 8th, I was proud to participate in the collecting of toys for the final Stuff a Cruiser toy drive before Christmas. This was held at the Connecticut Trolley Museum, at the Winterfest and the Tunnel of Lights. It was a great event collaborated by East Windsor Social Services, the East Windsor Police Department, and the Trolley Museum. Thank you to everyone who contributed with the toy. We did fill the cruiser that night. It was pretty cold, but...
It was.
On Monday, December 9th, I attended the Warehouse Point Fire District meeting. There was discussion of finding other sources for funds and applying for grants that would benefit the district. Since this meeting, I have been in touch with our legislators. I've had open communication with Representative Davis and Senator Anwar, who are working diligently to answer the questions that I sent them. Senator Anwar hopes to attend the next fire commissioners meeting. There was lengthy discussion of fire inspections. There are 451 buildings that require inspections, with 39 of those needing to be inspected annually. There were 67 fire calls in the month of November, totaling 667 calls for the first 11 months of this year. And it is impressive to note, which Chief Barton already did, that the FSM night shifts working from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. have assured response time of 5 to 7 minutes. It was a great week in our community honoring our veterans. On Wednesday, December 11th, with members of the Veterans Commission and the American Legion Post 40, I proudly attended the beautiful ceremony held at Walmart as the drivers made their way down from Maine, spreading the message that we shall remember our fallen U.S. veterans, honor those who serve, and teach our children the value of freedom. On Thursday, December 12th, the Veterans Commission met and unanimously voted to put the flags on veterans' graves in our cemetery 1 week prior to Memorial Day and then remove them 1 week later. Currently, they've been left out for several months.
You mean one week after Memorial Day? Not
right, well, they'll be put out 1 week prior to Memorial Day and then be removed 1 week after Memorial Day. And this will honor the memory of the people buried there with the intent of the flag, follow flag protocol, and prevent fading and frayed edges to the flag. On Saturday, December 14th, there was a beautiful ceremony held at noon at the Windsorville United Methodist Church in honor of Wreaths Across America. This yearly event is made possible by the East Windsor Veterans Commission, American Legion Post 40, and the Boy Scout Troop 89. Also on Saturday, I stopped by Geisler Supermarket, where members of the Warehouse Point Fire Department and Auxiliary were bagging for tips to benefit the Tony D. Scholarship Fund. It was a very successful event with approximately $1,200 raised on that day. On Monday, the 16th, I attended the Board of Finance special meeting that was discussing the audit presentation. And on Wednesday, December 18th, the Board of Finance met and approved the funding request for an additional appropriation in the amount of $150,000 for the splash pad and the ADA ramp project. That will come before the Board of Selectmen to be sent to town meeting. They also filled the open Republican spot that was vacated by myself, so congratulations to Tom Talamini on his new appointment. I'd also like to thank Selectman Nordell for attending the Board of Education meeting on my behalf, which he already reported to you this evening. And as mentioned, there is the Coffee with the Cop on Saturday from 9 to 12 at the Baker and Brew. It's a great way to engage with our law enforcement, and the Torchlight Parade and all the events you already mentioned. And wishing all of our East Windsor residents and their family a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a happy, healthy New Year. Thank you.
Public participation. This is the public's second opportunity to say whatever you'd like. Sir in the back.
Bill Simon with Philwood. I'd like to say thank Chief Barton for the presentation he gave tonight. I do appreciate that. As a four-year member of the Board of Finance and starting my second term, I do appreciate the information that was given, and I trust that you folks will put together a policy or something that will cover this. It was mentioned tonight by a certain commissioner that the Board of Finance has failed at least the Warehouse Point Fire District. I just like to point out we are a financial board, not a policy board. And we've done what we could. We did put money in the budget this year. It failed 3 times on both sides of town. So I feel we did do things. I did not appreciate the comment that was made that we make outside the parking lot deals. Does not happen. Anyone knows I barely make my meetings on time. I run in here a minute before they start. So, or after. So that does not happen. It's illegal. We don't do stuff like that. I do not appreciate comments like that from the commissioner. But again, I do appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Others?
Bob Like, 80 Rice Street. I like Bill's word trust instead of hope. We used to say, after recent elections, there's a new sheriff in town. That's kind of trite. You know what? We've got a new board of directors and a new chairman of the board for this $30+ million business. And after being involved in local government for 50 years, once as several terms as a Republican town chairman, and then 2 terms on the board of selectmen, I have never seen such thorough, important reports of how you intermingle and serve as liaisons to other important boards and commissions. I'm missing my 10 o'clock hockey game with the Vegas Golden Knights. But this is a serious compliment to you guys. You've got a lot of enthusiasm going, and it crosses seamlessly across political lines. And I like that. I hope you've got the energy and the stamina to keep it up, just like you have the last 2 meetings. In terms of the fire department fire department's challenges, I think that's right up there in your priority list. But I think rather than a challenge, it gives you an opportunity to get the parties together. I went to several of those meetings of the fire study committee up there at Park Hill, and the one thing that I found to be consistent was there was no bickering back and forth. The personalities weren't involved in the betterment of the merging or doing whatever's best for the whole town with the fire departments. 40 and 50 years, you got the same kind of things over in the Warehouse Point as far as this is. Sentiment and conviction of a volunteer department on both sides of town is so important. And regardless of whether you use the first SSD plan or a combination of pieces of other ones there, the biggest loss and the biggest negative to me, other than the costs of how to get these 2 things together, is losing volunteers. And that's a public safety issue. As a member of the Economic Development Commission, by the way, we have a full force now, and we had a very good meeting the other night, and we got a lot of good directions that we can turn to in terms of economic development. But, you know, it's all about the almighty dollar, except when it comes to public safety. So you got your work cut out with you, and in conjunction with perhaps another change in the form of town government, because you're appointing a charter study committee again.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Andy Heath's 15 Steeplechase Road. I'm gonna echo what's been said about Chief Barton's presentation, about your dedication and interest in solving this issue. When I heard about it 5 or 6 years ago at a meeting like this, and they said, not gonna be a problem, it's gonna be seamless, you're not gonna see a thing. Well, it didn't happen that way, and it hasn't happened that way for a long time. So I'm very glad to hear that it is getting resolved. I'm more optimistic now that it will be resolved in a fair and equitable manner, and I do appreciate that. And I think it's been a long time coming, and I just hope we do get it done as quickly as possible in this budget year. Thank you very much for all of your efforts, and yours too, Chief.
Thank you. Other public participation? Yes, sir.
Tom Calamini, 23 Rice Road. Again, Chief Barton, you did a great job. My only one question, and I'm just being optimistic, and you said it in your report, we lose volunteers. What's going to happen in 5 years if we don't get any volunteers? Are we going to go down that road of a paid department at some point? I mean, that's just I see that coming. I don't know how. I mean, and then what's going to happen with the 2 special districts?
I'm going to just ask that the comments be addressed to the board.
I'm sorry, to you.
If there are conversations that folks would like to have, maybe offline, that would be completely appropriate.
Right.
We still have a fair amount of business to do. Other public comments? Okay, then I'd ask for a motion to go into executive session.
I'll move that we go into executive session.
All in favor? We are going into executive session at 10:20. We're going to take a stretch break. Good.
After a 5.
Yes, sir.